So this turkey bingo the other night, and I saw her, but Dory's really dead about her turkey bingo, right? So she texts me after, she's like, when are we gonna go with Mom's night? I'm like, all right. Oh my God, Erin. Aren't both of your sisters? From kindergarten.
Johnny's mama cake. I don't know what. Mama cake.
You put it all together.
She said, I'm gonna need it Wednesday.
That's adorable.
They're Peter Pan.
He knows he's got
That's new. Oh, that is. He's in the public grade. She's gonna get moved next year. She's in
All right, it is 7:15. We'll call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. All members are present. Mr. Henry, would you like to lead us?
We beseech you, Almighty God, to bless this meeting of the Board of Education, so guide and rule over our hearts and our minds, that all our deliberations and decisions may be in accordance with your will and lead to the advancement and welfare of the community of Stratford, whom we serve. Amen.
Before we do the pledge, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for David Kennedy, who passed away recently. He was a man who devoted his life to service, served on the Board of Education, and most importantly, was Sean Kennedy's dad. So a moment of silence for David, please. Thank you.
You turn to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, this is the last official board meeting of our first year. So what I wanted to do, what I did, was make a list of some of our first year accomplishments, which I'll read to you. We developed and implemented solutions to address chronic absenteeism, improved communication and collaboration with police, fire marshals, mayor's office, teachers, administrations, and the community, upgraded district safety protocols, lifted the ban on artificial intelligence, and established an AI task force to explore its integration, formed a cell phone task force to address usage policies, created a communications task force to enhance district-wide messaging and transparency. And a lot of these things we've done in conjunction with the administration as well. Hired 2 exceptional assistant superintendents, reducing central office staff roles from 18 to 12 for greater efficiencies. Achieved measurable improvements in DIBEL scores. The data suggests that students are not coming in as low as in previous years. With the new science of reading knowledge, students are acquiring critical early literacy skills. Reimagined professional development to better support staff growth and student outcomes. Hosted a highly successful convocation, fostering excitement and unity among staff. Revamped the multi-tiered system of supports, MTSS, to better meet students' needs. Strengthen this district's discipline policy to promote a positive and equitable school climate. Ratified and redesigned the Alliance District Grant to meet state requirements and district goals. Fully staffed committees with diverse and representative community and staff members. Successfully addressed the ESSER funding cliff to maintain fiscal stability. Work to retain staff throughout the challenging budget process. reinstituted physicals for new hires, and engaged in conversations with the town to ensure proper protocols are in place to mitigate workers' comp damages. Fully funded the Science of Reading curriculum for immediate district-wide implementation. Purchasing 3 vans to resolve athletic transportation shortages and assist in student needs. And we're going through the specs with the town now on those. Progress to the final stages of redistricting efforts to optimize resources and equity. Completing the final stages of the Board of Ed bylaws revisions. Revise numerous policies to ensure compliance with state and federal laws and alignment with DOE priorities. The Curriculum Committee is updating our revision timeline to address all curriculum needs in a more timely fashion. Successfully negotiated 3 union contracts without requiring arbitration. Dedicated the Ruby McNeil English Wing to honor her contributions to education. Maintain stability and leadership during a challenging superintendent transition. Increase central office visits to buildings, supporting their needs, checking on the well-being of new staff, and reinforcing consistency among the buildings. Began conversations to improve and expand our CTE offerings. Lifted restrictions, making school visits and information gathering for board members more accessible. Engaged in initial conversations surrounding Bunnell renovations. And we've recognized many accomplishments like Katie Mark, Abby Owens, Bunnell High School, and Eli Whitney School. Those are some of the things we've accomplished over our first year. We've had a busy year. I'm excited about what the next year will change. Obviously, there are term limits, so that will be the end of our term, but I think we've had a very productive first year, and I look forward to continuing that vein. And again, all that has been done with the support and help of the administration. So I want to thank them and all their efforts, from the janitors to the teachers to the administrators to the superintendent. We've all worked together to ensure that Stratford was a better place. So thank you all. Student representative report, Bunnell High School, Jenna Bernardo.
Good evening. My name is Jenna Bernardo, and it is a pleasure to speak with you this evening. We're busy navigating through the start of quarter 2 at Bunnell. In the STEM department, 20 Bunnell High School students took part in the challenging American math competition sponsored by the Mathematical Association of America on November 6th. Several students earned notable scores in this very difficult national competition. The Numeracy Center at Bunnell has been a successful way for students to get extra help in mathematics, with over 40 students finding additional support during the school day. In science, students in biology, chemistry, physics have been working on several new lab exercises with new equipment, and forensic students have done investigations in the school courtyard. For the yearbook, we have organized and ran 3 days of underclassmen photos, senior formal portraits, and we're gathering photos of several events such as the pep rally, spirit weeks, and ongoing sports events. Students in the yearbook attended a Southern Connecticut State University High School yearbook boot camp and sat in sessions with photography, coverage of students, writing and editing, and design. We are excited to continue interviewing students and taking photos and also designing pages. We sell the book online. The current cost is $75 and it will go up to $85 on January 6th. Senior parents can buy ads online, and we will have a night in February for interested parents to come in and design ads with staffers. In the guidance department, school counselors conducted lessons with the freshmen that included being able to read a transcript, identifying graduation requirements, and setting academic, career, and personal goals for themselves. On November 13th, the counseling department facilitated 2 workshops for our new students. Students learned about all the clubs and extracurricular activities Bunnell has to offer, and engaged in small group dialogue with fellow peers. When asked what they liked best about Bunnell, most replied that the teachers are kind and welcoming. On November 20th,
Can you hang on 1 second? I'd like to ask the board members to put your cell phones away while she's speaking and give her the respect that she deserves. Thank you.
On November 20th, the ASVAB exam was administered to students who are interested in military entry. The exam results will be shared with students on December 11th at the Interpretation of Scores workshop. The counselors and social workers at Bunnell are conducting a group called Getting Prepared for Success. This group of identified students are participating in 8-week sessions focused on skills that will help students prepare for their futures in a positive way. And our Fine Arts Department stage is so excited to put on Elf musical on December 12th, 13th, and 14th at 7 p.m. and 2 p.m. on the 14th. This is a fantastic way to get into the holiday spirit. The music department concert will take place on December 16th at 6 p.m. This concert features several choirs, bands, and orchestras. Tickets are $4 and will be available online and at the door. Benall Athletics Pink Out campaign for the month of October was a tremendous success, as we were able to donate over $3,800 to the Norma Frame Breast Cancer Foundation during a pregame ceremony that took place on October 25th. Junior Aaliyah Straza for dance and senior Aiden Garcia for football were recognized as November Athletes of the Month. The athletic department recognized the commitments of Marissa DePronio, attending Western New England, Danielle Susi, attending Wagner, and Diallo Cohen, attending Gettysburg, continuing their soccer careers in college. Diallo earned All-State honors for the second consecutive year and is the second leading goal scorer in Benall boys soccer history with 62 goals. Our Benall football team currently has a record of 7-2 going into the Thanksgiving game with Stratford High. A win will secure a berth in the CIAC Class MM playoffs for the second consecutive year. The athletics department will be inducting its 2025 Hall of Fame class, at their banquet dinner on December 9th. Hall of Fame inductees are Chris Temple for football and Ronnie Rossamondo for baseball. Greg Sperling will be receiving the Walter Wright Community Service Award, and Frank Tato is receiving the Distinguished Service Award. On Thursday, November 14th, student government, in cooperation with Unified Sports, held a badminton tournament. And on Friday, November 22nd, Benall Student Government sponsored the first blood drive of the year in cooperation with HOSA and the American Red Cross. Over 20 people signed up to participate. Now, to answer the question that you asked, I believe that students play a vital role in building a strong educational community by actively participating in and contributing to their educational environment. Students can create a thriving, supportive, and inclusive community that benefits everyone. Students can encourage open dialogue and respect for diverse perspectives, and at Benall, this is done through our student leadership groups and the Student Advisory Board. Students are also encouraged to join or start clubs, societies, or initiatives that address educational or social needs. Currently, Benall has over 50 clubs, many of which organize school-wide events. For example, National Honor Society is in the process of scheduling tutoring to support students in MTSS, and Inspire Ed is collaborating with Living in Color, Men of Color, and Soul to plan our annual cultural showcase on December 6th. Currently, many of our clubs are connected with outside agencies and volunteer at community events. For example, Women's Empowerment volunteers at the Center for Family Justice, DECA is working on literacy initiative with our feeder elementary schools, and our school is partnered with the Stratford VFW and Veterans Museum on school and district-wide projects. Some areas of growth would be to bring back the mentoring program to our district. There are several students who would benefit from one-to-one mentoring, whether it be for personal challenges they are going through or for college and career guidance. Another thing I think we can improve upon is partnering with local organizations to bring real-world opportunities and resources to the school, especially for our CTE programs. For example, bringing in guest speakers to our pathway classes and partnering with local colleges and universities to offer more certification opportunities for students who complete a pathway. Currently, the pre-nursing program is the only program where students can graduate with certification. Thank you for your time and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. Where can you buy tickets for Elf?
I think online and at the door.
There you go.
Good evening. I hope everyone is getting ready for the Thanksgiving holiday. Please know that all of us at Stratford High School wish you the happiest of Thanksgivings, and I hope you spend some quality time with your loved ones. Stratford High School is honored to announce that social studies teacher Kathy Mack has recently been honored as the Fairfield County Chapter Eunice Denny Barr Outstanding Teacher of American History. As a result of that award, she also learned that she has also been named the DAR Daughters of the American Revolution winner as the 2025 Outstanding Teacher of American History for the state of Connecticut. Congratulations to Mrs. Mack. Stratford High School faculty, the English department, and the English National Honor Society administration, Stratford Board of Education, Superintendent Borges, Mayor Hoydick, and several community partners were honored to dedicate the SHS English Wing to Ruby Kinlow McNeil on Thursday, November 21st. Ms. McNeil's family was in attendance as we honored her passion and contributions to countless students whose lives she impacted over the years. SHS would like to thank everyone involved for making this happen. This past weekend, the SHS Drama Society presented Arsenic and Old Lace in black and white. The student performances were amazing and the set was stunning. Congratulations to our students and staff for a wonderful show. On October 30th, SHS graduate and current CIA Isaac Soto took the Men of Color group to Berlin High School for a speaking panel. The 6 speakers spoke about their personal journeys and helped define them and their success. On Friday, November 1st, Stratford High attended the CY-NAACP Great Debate in Bloomfield, organized by the NAACP. Inspired by the 2007 movie The Great Debaters, starring actor Denzel Washington, the Connecticut State Conference of the NAACP branches created the NAACP Great Debate in 2008. This one-of-a-kind debate series brings back together the highly acclaimed debate teams from historically black colleges and universities to compete against their Ivy League counterparts. The teams debate some of the most pressing social, cultural, and political issues of today. With growing interest, the NAACP has since hosted a series of debates from around the nation, from Houston to Seattle, Washington, D.C., New York, and annually in New Haven, Connecticut, where it originated. Our goal is to raise consciousness and capture the interest of high school students as one of the most powerful and effective tools in the advancement of civil rights issues in education. On Friday and Saturday, November 1st and 2nd, SHS celebrated their 2024 homecoming with a pep rally, a halftime ceremony, and a homecoming dance on Saturday night. I would like to congratulate our homecoming court and our king and queen, Devontae, Harriet, and Camilla, who received the highest amount of votes. November 12th was a special day at Stratford High School. Under the leadership of Mrs. Borgelli and Mrs. Indiviri, SHS held their Veterans Day celebration. Over 30 veterans attended, including Mr. O'Brien from the Board of Education. Both assemblies included performances from our bands and choir, panel discussion with our honored guests, and a video montage created by Mr. Pamucci and his video production classes. We read thank you letters to our veterans that were prepared by students at SHS. Veterans shared their personal experiences and opportunities afforded to them by their dedication to our country. Our actual assembly was led by 4 students, Mary Grace Sutton, Bear Schmidt, Melisha Clark, and me. Then, we were all fed breakfast and lunch prepared by Chef Leon, Mrs. Maraglino, and the culinary students at SHS. Our art teachers, led by Mrs. Gennario, and the Be Kind Club handled the decorations and the swag bags given to each veteran prepared by our art, CTE, social studies, and culinary teachers and students. Thank you to everyone for making it such a special day. The Todd Stoltz annual student faculty flag football game was played on November 12th at Penders Field. This game happens annually to raise funds for the Todd Stoltz Scholarship that is awarded annually to a graduating senior from SHS. This year, the faculty won again, and I can't believe Mr. Delapiano actually played, considering how old he is. Parent conferences were held on November 13th. Parents had the option to schedule individual conferences in person and virtually. Over 400 conferences were held. The school counseling department worked with seniors to ensure that any student who wanted to apply during the CT-free application days to CT state universities were able to complete their application and submit it by the deadline. A representative from UConn came to Stratford High School to meet with seniors who were interested in applying and offered application support to students who still had questions regarding applying to UConn. School counselors participated in the Youth Mental Health First Aid Professional Development on Election Day. At this point, 32% of our seniors have applied to colleges, which is about the same time as last year. In the STEM department, one of our science teachers, Mrs. McDougall, is leading the chapter of HOSA, Health Occupation Students of America at Stratford High School. Membership continues to grow as she had to change her meeting location to the CAF due to accommodate her ever-expanding attendance. Presently, we have over 75 students actively involved. On the math side of the department, we recently had 10 eager and competitive students participate in the American Math Competition on Wednesday, November 6th. No results just yet, but each participant felt good about their performance. Our SHS math team continues to impress in the Fairfield County Math League with another solid showing in the most recent competition. For the humanities department, in our classrooms, you would find the junior English students engaging in performing their own slam poetry and writing literary analysis essays in their final unit performance tasks. In Mrs. Teague's 9th grade English classes, students engaged in making hexagonal thinking maps as they supported conceptual connections in the text fences. This task was modeled after a teacher walkthrough in Kathleen Mack's African American, Black, Puerto Rican, Latino course of studies, where students engaged with a compelling question around Black literacy, organizations, and liberation. As part of the Rotary grant to prepare for the spring student council election, civics teachers are gearing up to welcome the registrar of voters into classrooms the week we return from break. They will speak on how local and state government is structured, the differing functions of state and local government, and the process for running a campaign and the voter registration process. In athletics, Stratford celebrated its October Athletes of the Month. Avery Foydo, an all-state swimmer as a sophomore, followed up with a strong junior season, qualifying for the state opens in backstroke and individual melody. Max Owen, a junior golfer, received all-colonial recognition and qualified for states. He is the first state qualifier in more than 10 years for the Red Devils. Both athletes were also named to the all-academic team in the Southwest Conference. Senior running back and receiver Devontae Harriet was named the SWC Offensive Player of the Week for his performance last week against Notre Dame of Fairfield. Madison McCain, senior captain of the girls volleyball team, was named second team All-State in Class L division. She also surpassed 1,000 career digs in her high school career. Stratford is a beautiful town. We all love our town and want our education system to thrive. In order to do so, it requires the involvement of all stakeholders: teachers, staff, principals, board members, businesses, parents, but also the students. Each party is an important piece of the puzzle, and we must all come together to make it whole. Last month, we were asked, what are some ways you believe students can contribute to making Stratford's educational community stronger? When it comes to students, how can we contribute to making our educational community stronger? I personally think that you start within yourself as an individual. Each student should reflect and ask themselves the question, what can I do to make my school and the Stratford educational community better? And based on their answer, they must start to be involved in the area that they judge needs improvement. As for myself, after self-reflection, I realized that it comes to engagement, which also aligns with the other question on how we can engage our class to make the community better. If we want change, we need to start by changing and improving ourselves. We are fortunate that at Stratford High School, we have a great school community with engaged students, but there is always room for improvement. When I talk about engagement, I refer to the engagement on a personal and community level. On a personal level, I believe that to create this stronger educational community, we as students must participate in our class, setting up academic goals on what we want to achieve during the school year and beyond, participate in school events, clubs, extracurricular activities, and so forth. We must start investing in our own school learning environment to foster a stronger educational community. Some ways we can engage our students include advertising our activities and events more often. We should be constantly showing the positive effects of engagement and participant during school-wide events and assemblies, or through our classes. Many students are influenced by their peers, and when their peers are an active part of their school and educational community, it leads them to wanting to be involved as well. As a member of the SHS dance team, one of my students mentioned that by seeing our performance at a pep rally, it led her to want to try out. We should make the students aware of the benefits of being engaged in school. On the community level, building positive relationships with others and getting to know our peers is what unites us. Local businesses should also be getting involved as we need support from everywhere. Some examples include the YMCA, Stratford Library, Recreation Center, etc., can allow for more opportunities for students to serve their educational community with volunteering throughout the school year. Or elementary schools can offer peer tutoring to students who are struggling. A middle schooler or a high schooler can get paired with an elementary school student and assist them in their studies. This leads to educational growth for the younger student and learning experiences for the older student as well. We must foster a more welcoming environment where all students and staff feel they can learn and grow safely. Ways to achieve this goal is by promoting inclusion, tolerance, empathy, acceptance of others, and seeing diversity as a strength that can help our environment thrive and move us forward. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today, and I hope everyone will enjoy their Thanksgiving.
Thank you both very much for always being so professional, for showing us your strength, and for demonstrating what a portrait of a graduate looks like. So I appreciate you very much.
And just so, in case you ladies don't realize it, you are leaders, whether you know it or not, but you are. And if you lead, people will follow. And I know a lot of your comments were about leading, so I encourage you both to lead and to continue to lead. And I think you guys will make a huge impact in the community. So thank you. All right, Teresa, do we have any other? You skipped. I'm going back. Public forum? Yes. Oh. That's what I just asked Teresa if she had any more.
Not at the moment.
What's that, sir?
No more speakers.
Okay. All right, so the first speaker will be Bonnie Reynolds. I'll remind the speakers, you'll have 3 minutes. Mr. Kennedy will give you a 1-minute warning, and ask that you follow the rules of the quorum as you speak. Thank you.
Bonnie Reynolds, 430 Chickadee Lane. I apologize in advance for my voice. Thank you for your time tonight. Until earlier this evening, the Finance Committee hadn't met for 5 months in the midst of a budget crisis. The Town Council Liaison Committee hasn't met in 9 months. Months and months with no public meetings, no agendas or minutes, no videos for the public to watch, or opportunities for the public to provide input. There has been no transparency. The chair claims to support transparent open governing, but the opposite is true. What discussions are happening behind closed doors? What decisions are being made in private out of the spotlight? I call on the BOE to bring back regularly scheduled public meetings that are properly noticed and recorded. What has happened over the past several months was a bogus investigation into Dr. Asundi that cost thousands of dollars in taxpayer money. The writing was on the wall when the chair created a personnel subcommittee at the beginning of the chair's tenure. The only employee the BOE oversees directly is the superintendent. This shows us Chairman Hennick had planned from the beginning to find anything and everything to pin on a well-respected, strong leader who he had a personal issue against. We now have lost an excellent superintendent, several other strong leaders who have gone to other systems and damaged our system's reputation in the process. We have gained nothing and have lost so much, including a bundle of taxpayer dollars. Sometimes a resolution to end a dispute is made in order to benefit both parties. This is what happened recently when the BOE and the former superintendent of schools, Dr. Asundi, resolved the doctor's employment dispute. I'm glad our school system can move forward from this, and Dr. Asundi can move on to other endeavors where his talent can truly be valued and effectively utilized. However, the BOE majority, who caused this disaster, should not feel absolved of their bigotry, hatred, and political alignment over all else.
Next speaker, Allison Delbeni Rodriguez.
Good evening, members of the board. As you prepare to vote on the redistricting plan, I am here to advocate for allowing 6th graders with just 1 year left in their current schools to finish their final year. This decision will do far more good than harm by providing stability and continuity during a pivotal time in their education. If you've ever had or will have a child entering 6th grade, you know how special their final year of elementary school is. A time filled with milestones and activities that foster a strong sense of community and belonging, which directly support engagement and performance. For my daughter, who has been part of her school since kindergarten, the relationships she has built with peers and teachers are central to her confidence and success. And we're talking K through 6, reading to second graders, the whole school, not just her grade. Disrupting these connections would turn a time meant for growth and preparation for middle school into a more challenging experience. Neighboring districts in similar situations have allowed students with just 1 year remaining to stay in their schools, recognizing the importance of stability for both students and their families. Stratford has the opportunity to follow this thoughtful example, demonstrating its commitment to fostering a supportive and engaged community. Many districts have made it clear that this type of grandfathering is a one-time accommodation for a specific class. It's a fair and compassionate solution that acknowledges the unique challenges of this transition while ensuring students can stay engaged and connected to their school community. Your decision tonight will send a strong message about Stratford's priorities. I urge you to honor the relationships these students have built, support their engagement and performance, and ensure they can finish their elementary school journey in the community that has shaped them. Thank you so much for your time in considering this important issue with care.
Next speaker is Katie Kaczynski.
Hi, this is Katie Kaczynski, 895 Overton Terrace. Good evening, board members. I question whether or not to speak at this evening's meeting. I question it because speaking to this board, with a few exceptions, feels like speaking to a brick wall. I have expressed my thoughts regarding allowing transitional year children, kids going into 6th and 8th grade, to remain in their current schools, and I've expressed that children with IEP should be given the opportunity to stay in their current schools, owning to care team relationships, transitional issues with IEP children, and having potential progress loss with children with therapeutic related needs. This is the 3rd time I've spoken to the board. I have started a petition. I have been quoted in the Connecticut Post and the Stratford Crier, and I've emailed the board copious amounts of research which scientifically back my recommendation regarding IEP children. And despite these efforts, I have little hope that minds will be opened or opinions will be changed. I question what would be required to actually.
Can we in the back just have one meeting again, please?
Yeah, I'm speaking very quietly.
No, one meeting, please.
I'm not blocking the camera.
But
We'll wait until she's done.
No,
I'm sorry. We'll wait until she's done. I am sorry.
Thank you.
When she's done.
Sorry.
All right, let's see, where was I? I question what would be required to actually change minds or approve a point. It feels like the board has made their decision long ago and nothing will cause a deviation from that plan. So I want to ask this board one last time, as I understand in the bylaws that you can vote to amend the plan this evening, to consider my recommendations for the Stratford children. Thank you.
The next speaker is Sasha Latanzi.
Good evening, my name is Sasha Latanzi. I'm at 76 Home Street. I'm a South End parent, and I'm here today to talk about a couple of quick issues. My first one is to ask for more transparency. I feel like there's been a great loss of transparency. It's been slowly going downhill. I am a South End parent. I was reading in the Connecticut Post that the board wanted to hear from South End parents about the redistricting. I've been a South End parent long enough where I was around for the mess of the first redistricting that we're now fixing, because now we have to fix the mess that was caused before. So I know the challenges it caused for our students, so I hope that the board will listen to parents who are coming forth with their concerns, especially about our IEP kids, about 6th grade children. I watched as a lot of the children in my children's classes struggled to get through their initial years. And my kids were fortunate. They got to stay in their schools, but I watched a lot of the other kids that did not get that same privilege. The transparency also goes forward because when I read that the board wanted to hear about South End parents, I was really excited. I thought this is a really good step in the right direction. And then there was a meeting scheduled, and then I watched a meeting where you guys all came together and made the decision without hearing from those parents, and that was really, really disappointing. And that lack of transparency, when I see that there's been no finance meetings, there have not been liaison meetings in months, and I'm not sure why. Why aren't there meetings? Why aren't we discussing finances? Because it seems like we spend a lot of time talking about how we have no money in the budget. We have no money in the budget for librarians. Kids in an overcrowded Johnson Academy had a librarian there. She was absolutely fantastic. And now she's not the librarian anymore because we don't have money for that. But what we do have money for is a lot of money in legal fees to cover certain members of the board and the Board of Ed. We got money for that. And if anybody hasn't read the lawsuit that came about against the Board of Ed members for politicization and racism, I suggest you go find that lawsuit online because it is there and it's pretty bad. So in a town as diverse as this, when we've got our own Board of Ed members getting accused of racism and settling, I'm going to call on all of you that were involved in that lawsuit to step down from your position. Because you've hurt the children of Stratford. You have not helped them. You have taken from them in lawsuit money to cover your own selves. We can't have librarians for our children, but we can pay for their legal fees.
Time's up.
Have a good night.
Next speaker is Evelyn Sabello.
Good evening, my name is Heather Lucibello. I live at 325 Reading Terrace. I'm here tonight regarding the impending redistricting effort, and I'm hopeful that you'll all carefully consider all of the facts, the costs, and what the actual goal of the redistricting is before the vote tonight. I hope you'll honor your commitment to those goals of ensuring the least number of students are impacted, the greatest equality of space utilization at the building level, as well as limiting where at all possible the burden our budget places on taxpayers. In looking at the goals of the redistricting side by side with the actual plan being proposed, I have specific major concerns that I hope you can address with an amendment to the plan tonight. First, not allowing sixth graders to complete their final year at the school they've attended since kindergarten is cruel, full stop. Second, moving 71 Wilcoxon students to Chapel does nothing to achieve the goal of space utilization, impacting the least number of children, cutting costs where at all possible, or racial balance. Further, this aspect of the plan will impact 71 families unnecessarily and be an added cost to the budget for busing. To that end, and will also increase the likelihood that this move will impact student outcomes. To that end, I hope you will consider the decades of research that indicate moving a child from their school during their elementary years negatively impacts math scores, leads to disruption in the continuity of their learning, and can lead to gaps in knowledge compared to their peers who do not move. The Connecticut Post article that was just released regarding Stratford's over 50% decrease in math SAT scores is abysmal at best. Yet here we are planning to increase the likelihood that an additional 71 students will unnecessarily struggle. Prior to this meeting, I provided you all with a link to a 25-year longitudinal study, as well as provided the abstract for you all for ease of consumption. In that study, it was found that school mobility has been shown to increase the risk of poor achievement, behavior problems, grade retention, high school dropout. When the timing of school mobility was examined, the results indicated more negative outcomes associated with moves, particularly during between 4th and 8th grade. At the last redistricting subcommittee meeting, a vote was taken and passed unanimously to allow flex zone children to change paths to attend the Flood and Bunnell district as opposed to Worcester and Stratford High. Mike commented that it's not a big difference in terms of transportation time, yet this is the precise answer he gave when questioning why the 68 students that need to move out of the Johnson district could not attend Chapel. Lastly, as it relates to my children specifically, the impact this unnecessary move will have on our family and the town's finances is tremendous. My son has a one-to-one nurse due to significant health issues. If he were able to attend Wilcoxon, he would be a walker and cost the town exactly $0 extra. If this plan goes through as planned, without the exception for Wilcoxon, the district will legally have to provide my son with special education transportation, complete with a certified nurse to ride with him both ways each day. Additionally, you will then need to provide regular education transportation for my non-disabled daughter to attend the same school from the same address.
Time's up.
Thank you.
last speaker, I thank you all for your comments. We have no state legislators report or attorneys report. We'll move on to the administrative executive reports. Start with the superintendent's executive report.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight. As we gather just days before Thanksgiving, I wanted to take this opportunity to express my gratitude for the many wonderful things happening in our district. This season reminds us to pause and appreciate the collective efforts that make Stratford Public Schools a special place for learning, growth, and connection. I am thankful to the incredible dedication of our staff. This month, we held professional development sessions that highlighted our educators' commitment to continuous improvement. Topics ranged from literacy to student growth measures, and it was inspiring to see our staff work collaboratively to refine their practices and benefit our students. I am also thankful for the dedication and collaboration that went into securing 2 major grants and 1 smaller grant. These grants total over $1 million. We just received notification that we have been approved for middle school 21st century and for a federal Project Inspire grant, which expands our Project Uplift grant down to 5th and 6th grade. We have also received a smaller grant, the Mary L. Fitch Trust Grant, to celebrate our teachers. All of these opportunities will benefit our students and our staff. We really have an incredible team here. I am thankful for the opportunity to celebrate and recognize our staff during American Education Week. We shared moments of appreciation and reflection for our teachers, nurses, administrators, paraeducators, custodians, secretarial staff, and all of this just reinforced how essential their work is to the success of our students and to the fabric of our community. I am especially grateful for our students who shared their voices in our first student advisory meeting last week. Students in grades 6 to 12, represented from every school, engaged in meaningful dialogue about school climate, mental health, and they reminded us why we're here. Finally, I want to acknowledge and thank our educators who inspire excellence in this district. It was an honor for me to accompany Abby Owen, our Teacher of the Year, to the statewide recognition event. It was a reminder of the talent and dedication present in our schools. So as we move forward, let's continue to carry this spirit of gratitude and collaboration. And I wish you all a restful Thanksgiving filled with joy and connection to your loved ones.
Any questions for acting superintendent?
Good evening. We're once again in that really exciting, busy time of year where we are actually working within 3 fiscal years at once. We are closing up fiscal year 24, where my office is working with the town auditors. Statutorily, the audit is to be complete by December 31st. We also have the ongoing management of fiscal year 25, and we are in the process of developing the fiscal year 26 budget. The board has received the budget calendar, so we'll be spending a lot of quality time in the month of February, as you may recall. And we also gave you the budget guidelines that we share with our schools and our departments that guide them in putting in their budgets. We've been supporting the schools and departments as they work through the budget development process, as all the requests are due by Wednesday, November 27th. So we'll be spending our Thanksgiving holiday, Ms. Borges and I, looking at some of those requests. We will also be reviewing not only each budget request, but all of the new initiatives that are requested as well. And that basically requires our schools and our departments to put on a special form anything that's above and beyond the normal operating budget, if it's a new program, a new position that they would like offered, so that we can assess it and determine if it's something that we can include in our budget proposal to the board. So after we do all of that and get the budget together, we are looking forward to presenting the superintendent's budget to the board on February 3rd. I will just share with you that we do have some concerns about funding for fiscal year 26. We will have to absorb our usual salary and benefit increases, as well as expected increases in utilities that we have shared with you, as well as special education and health insurance. We're also anticipating the possible reduction of revenue from one-time town allocations, and also the possible reduction of entitlement grant funding that we did in fact get hit with this year as well. So consequently, we are again requiring all schools and departments to submit budget requests for fiscal year 26 that are equal to or less than their current appropriation. Should they feel that they cannot live within that budget, then they need to make an additional special request to the superintendent, who will review it and determine whether or not we will add it into our financial plan that gets presented to the board. So school administrators are truly reminded to carefully review not only their needs, but their inventory when it comes to supplies, to make certain that we are just putting in budgetary requests for what we truly need, and to ensure that the budget aligns with strategic priorities. As always, our financial plan will focus on adhering to the goals of the Board of Ed while advocating for the educational needs of our students in the most fiscally responsible way. We know that the budget season is always challenging for all of us, and first and foremost is in our minds in the admin center is to make certain that we are presenting the board with open, honest, transparent information that we have done in the past 5 budgets that I have done with this board, and that we are ensuring that we can do the best we can to get our resources into the classroom. So that will continue to be our goal, and we look forward to the budget season, spending our quality time together. That's my report tonight.
Any questions? Can you, Ms. Mangini, explain to us or even to the public why we haven't had a finance committee meeting in a few months?
I'll do my best to try to recall. In August, I believe we did not have one scheduled. I really don't recall all the reasons, but I do know that one month we did not have a quorum. And did we not have one in August? Everyone keeps saying we did not have one since June, but I feel like we did, so I need to go back and check that as well. But normally when they are scheduled, they're held, but I know we did have some issues with scheduling and with quorums over the last couple of months.
I just want to add that there was a meeting in June. There was not a meeting in July because there is never a meeting in July.
Correct.
There was, I believe, a meeting in August.
I believe there was.
But it was very quick because there was no discussion to be had. In September, there was no update yet. In October, there was, I have to remember what happened in October.
I believe that's when we had lack of quorum.
Oh, we had lack of quorum, yes. And individuals had reasons as to being out, and we're not gonna hold a meeting to waste people's time. So there have not been any meetings. We had a very extensive meeting tonight, and we covered a lot tonight. There's also not been a ton to discuss up until now. So
I was going to add that,
Yeah.
that early in the fiscal year, there isn't a lot of information to share with the board because school hasn't started until September, and unless there's a real concern that we would bring to you, there really wasn't much to share.
Correct.
So I think it's been the policy of this board to not hold meetings to feel important, but to do things that are important. And we will continue in that vein and not hold meetings that aren't necessary when information is not readily available, just to feel important. So,
And as far as the town liaison meetings, those are not our meetings. Those are the town council's meetings. So those are canceled by the town council.
So moving on, I would like to call on our 2 exceptional assistant superintendents to provide their report and enlighten us.
Thank you. On behalf of Dr. DiOrio and the Teaching and Learning Department, I'm pleased to provide the update this evening, highlighting recent activities and ongoing initiatives across our district. These efforts are aligned with our shared commitment to foster meaningful learning, enhancing instructional quality, and ensuring the success of our students and our staff. I'll add a little bit more. Acting Superintendent Borges commented on our professional development day. We held a very successful one on election day. Full day of professional development sessions for staff with a focus on instructional excellence and practical strategies for enhancing classroom practice. Feedback collected from participants on a brief survey were overwhelmingly positive. We asked 3 simple questions for both the morning and afternoon sessions. Overall quality of the professional development, how the staff found the content relevant to their current position and role in the district, and finally, were they confident now in their ability to take the learning and apply it to their practice. Just some quick figures, over 76% felt positive about overall quality in the morning, while 79% in the afternoon. 81% found the content relevant to their current roles for the morning session, while 84% in the afternoon session felt the same way. And in terms of their ability to apply the knowledge, over 75% in the morning session responded positively, while 82% felt confident in their ability to implement what they learned in the afternoon session. So the day's workshops were tailored to meet the diverse needs of our staff. Again, Acting Super Borges commented on some of the sessions that were offered in terms of our new literacy program, as well as workshops on integrating the portrait of the graduate into instruction, leveraging AI to enhance teaching and learning, improving Tier 1 instruction, and other subject-specific workshops across content areas. These professional learning opportunities, I can't stress enough, are very critical to our ongoing efforts to support teachers in refining their craft and implementing high-impact strategies in their classrooms. The positive feedback, again, reflects thoughtful planning and alignment of these sessions with district priorities and our staff's needs. I'd also like to report that over the past week or so, I've had the privilege of visiting our middle schools along with Board Chair Mike Henrik. I know also Board Member D'Angelo Powers I've seen walking around with Acting Superintendent Borges as well. These visits were an opportunity to observe our classrooms, the dedication of our teachers, and the engagement of the students. They also allowed for board members to hear directly from the building leaders and the staff around triumphs and various challenges that they experience day by day. These in-person visits really underscore the importance of being present in our schools to see the impactful work that's happening every day. I do strongly encourage all board members to consider joining us for similar visits to our schools, experience the energy and commitment of our school communities firsthand. This will provide you invaluable context as we make decisions that affect our growth and success. So please feel free to reach out to us to coordinate that. In terms of curriculum development and our budget planning, one of our top priorities is developing a strategic plan, as was mentioned earlier, for curriculum writing and revision. To that end, we've been meeting with building and department leaders to assess current curriculum needs and identify the gaps. And together we're mapping out a comprehensive plan for the remainder of this school year and looking ahead to the next few years. This planning process is definitely not occurring in isolation. It's closely tied to the district's budget development efforts for the upcoming fiscal year. And in collaboration with building and department leaders, we're working to ensure that the curriculum needs are integrated into that budget process and into their budget requests. Again, this alignment is critical to ensuring our financial resources support our instructional goals and strategic priorities. And as we move forward, our focus will remain on designing curriculum that not only aligns with state standards, but also supports the portrait of the graduate. Classroom observations and impactful feedback have been a focus as well. Our commitment to instructional excellence continues to guide our work with district and building leaders. We're engaging in the ongoing process of refining our classroom observation practices and providing meaningful, actionable feedback to our teachers. The goal of this initiative is twofold: to support teacher growth and to enhance student learning experiences. By focusing on elements of high-quality instruction, we are working to ensure that every student has access to engaging, rigorous, and equitable learning opportunities. Looking ahead, the initiatives outlined above represent just a portion of the meaningful work that's happening in Stratford Public Schools. As we continue to move forward, we remain focused on fostering collaboration, aligning our resources to our district priorities, and ensuring that all decisions are grounded in what is best for our students. And again, in the spirit of the season, we want to thank the board for your ongoing support and partnership. We do feel that your role as board members is vital to the success of our district, and I encourage you to remain engaged in all of these efforts. So thank you.
Any questions? Ms. Dior, did you have anything you'd like to add?
We thought we'd
We're gonna
take turns, so we don't, you don't have to hear from both of us every month.
Any questions? So just, I guess one question, you've all done all that since you started? That's a lot of work in a
Since
short
July
period of time. Thank you.
Keep them busy.
Thank you. All right, moving on, look for an acceptance of the minutes of the October 28, 2024 regular meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. O'Brien, second by Mr. Bell. Any discussion, amendments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Look for approval of the personnel assignments as detailed in our agenda. Yeah, first, moved by Mr. Bell,
Second.
second by Mr. O'Brien. Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to amend the personnel assignments list due to a meeting of the personnel committee that we had this evening, earlier this evening. Today's November 25th, right? And we had a unanimous vote to send forward a candidate for the Director of Instructional Technology, Teaching and Learning position, Dr. Michelle Eckler. And she would be starting with Stratford on January 2nd, 2025, and funded by the Redistricting.
Motion to amend by Mr. Bell. In a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Brien. Any discussion? Motion on, a vote on the amendment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. So I'll look for a motion to approve the proposal as amended.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Carol Fabian. Second by Mr. Bell. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. All right, Ms. Mangini, you're back up.
Yes.
I'll let you introduce it before we.
Sounds good. The finance committee members did recommend favorably the 3 budget transfers that you have received. Budget transfer number 1 in the amount of $252,305.61 is primarily a result of difficulty in hiring behavioral technicians, and as a result, we're requesting that you allow us to move the money that was allocated for that purpose from salaries to clinical costs, since we had to use a vendor, so that would be the proper account for that cost. Do you want me to do all 3?
Let's take them one at a time.
Okay.
Just for.
So I'll pause there.
So I'd look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Bell, second by Mr. Cormier. Any discussion? And this is, again, just an even swap. Yeah?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Number 2.
Budget number 2, budget transfer number 2 in the amount of $68,000 is a result of actually a statewide challenge in securing athletic trainers that we previously had contracted through a company for many years. The company was unable to provide us with athletic trainers this year, so we allowed the high schools to hire their own athletic trainer as a district employee. Stratford High School was successful in doing that. Unfortunately, Bunnell was not, but they did secure an athletic trainer through a service. Therefore, we're asking to have permission to move $68,000 that was budgeted in contracted services to a salary account to handle the cost through Stratford High School's salary account.
Moved by Ms. Bell, second by Mr. Kennedy. Any discussion? So with this line item, this is again, an item that was budgeted for, but it's just being utilized in a different manner.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Number 3.
And the last budget transfer in the amount of $771,171.68 is what I most often refer to as housekeeping, and basically it involves all certified salary accounts for teachers, and it's a result of reductions in classrooms in some schools, addition of classrooms in others, some adjusting to account line items in schools as a result of new teachers hired that perhaps cost more, and maybe a retirement or a resignation in another line item that created a little bit of a surplus in that line. So for the most part, it is just moving money from one salary account to cover it in another salary account. So we just wanted to make sure that none of our salary accounts were in deficit for our teachers. So it's really just housekeeping.
So moved.
From Ms. Bell. Second from Mr. O'Brien. Any discussion? So this line item will come from a salary line item surplus and does not eat up the entire surplus. There'll be some additional funds left over in the transfer from line item.
That's correct. We're simply trying to cover all the salaries that we know at this time. We just don't want any line item to be in deficit. So we're just moving money from one salary account to another.
But in the event we need it, there is still money in that line item.
Well, currently,
the original line item is.
Currently, we do have a year-end balance projected in our salaries because we have open vacancies.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. I don't know if you're done at this point, Ms. Mangini, but if you are welcome to.
I'll leave that to Ms. Borges. Do you need me for anything? Can't let her down, you know.
No, we appreciate you coming out and don't want to hold you over any later than we need you, so thank you. So the discussion CPE report, actually Samantha Rosenberg is going to come to curriculum first, rather than come here and do a report, so I would look for a motion to table that.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Bell, second by Mr. O'Brien. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Now, on the first read status of the next policy, we had asked to push, and we can handle it one of two ways. We had pushed the first item, P1110.1, down to P2231, over to the Communication Committee, to ask for them to review it first. We can either table it or take it as a first read and wait for their recommendation procedure. Personally, I just assume table it, but I'll leave it up to you guys.
I think we should first read if anybody has comments on it now, we can add those into whatever communication.
Okay. So then it would be a motion to accept the reports of P1110.1 through P2231 as a first read. Somebody like to make that motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Bell, second by Mr. O'Brien. So actually, this is a subcommittee of the policy that I sat on. Most of the changes referred to gender, properly identifying genders to its current state, they and theirs, as opposed to his and hers, changing legal custodians to, I can't remember the verbiage that was there, guardians.
From guardians.
From guardians to legal custodians, yes. We added on the second page, 110.2, we just added school forms and student updates that should go on the student portal. Again, changed some of the legal custodians. We removed on 1112.5, which is page 19. There's a line there that basically says the press doesn't need to get permission from a parent to interview a student. Spoke to our attorney about that, and he felt that that should be removed, and that as much as we love our press, they don't necessarily have the right to go randomly asking kids questions for their mind. Next one, 2.6, we just changed some of the language to reflect today's environment, lawful custodian and student who has an exceptionality. his and hers today's. Again, on the next page, we just changed some of the verbiage. On 11:20, we changed any person who wishes to address the board to any Stratford resident. So they can sign up online, we changed it there. One of the rules has been no more than 3 minutes may be allotted to each speaker. Once everyone has spoken, a speaker may have the opportunity to speak at the chairman's discretion, which is to reflect our bylaws as well, and the state statute. I'm going to change to the next page. Next page, responsibilities of board members and school personnel, 1150/1160. We eliminated a sentence, individuals should answer questions only when they have full and complete understanding, just period, of the point about which they have been asked. We didn't feel that was necessary. If the employer or board is not prepared to answer accurately, fully, they should refer the inquirer to the board member who would have the appropriate information. And on the next page, we eliminated citizens, changed it to Stratford residents. On memorials for deceased students and or staff members, we had changed permanent memorials for deceased students shall be limited in the form of perpetual awards or scholarships. We had changed, there was some planting, there was a section for allowing plantings, but just didn't feel based on our size of our school grounds that was appropriate and might create restrictions to our ability to do that. And the administrative regulation we removed, that's something that would be done if it was administratively and not through our own policies. School Community Association 1210, we just again changed some of the language. Community relations, we had eliminated some of the number 4 and 5 are items that are out of our lane, so to speak. It talks about that if a parent is dissatisfied with a decision by the superintendent about the child's education, they can come to the board. That is not in our purview. The superintendent is the final say. They do have due process if they chose to go that route. So we eliminated number 4 and 5 because of that. And then we just changed some of the language in the next sentence. Whenever a complaint is made directly to the board as a whole or to the board members as an individual, it would be referred to the superintendent for study of possible solutions. And that is in line with their duties. 12:12, we just changed some of the language there. I don't know if some of this was offensive, which some can deem it as offensive, but in the equitable, it started with innovative. We look for equitable programs should be developed and established for teachers who aspire to administrative positions. Some of the staff felt it was inappropriate. A special effort should be made to encourage women and minorities to seek administrative positions. And then, I think that is, well, in 2131, we changed some of the language in the end, again, just to reflect today's environment. So 2231 stays as the same. So those are, that's the highlights of what we had discussed.
There are more.
Yeah, the other ones are not the ones though that are gonna go to communications.
Okay.
So, without objection, we can accept this as so without objection, we can accept this as a first read, give everybody a chance to review it a little more, or if you have comments now, we can discuss it at this time. Sure, go ahead.
So moved.
Motion to accept as a first read.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. O'Brien. Any discussion?
Yes. First on the parent involvement policy, 1110.1. The last line that says superintendent will report annually to the Board of Education on parent involvement activities. How exactly are we measuring this? What's being reported?
Where are we going?
The very last,
the superintendent's permit to the Board of Ed on parental involvement activities. I mean, I think that's typically done as part of as a superintendent's report, if there's information to be shared. I think you talked.
As a district, we collect all that data, in addition to the surveys that get sent out about parent involvement and community involvement. But as you heard from Dr. Piazza, when we do our professional development, when we hold our nights, we are always seeking feedback, and we're also tracking the amount of participation. So I'm happy at the end of the year to report parent involvement. Students also spoke about it. We talked about conferences and how many parents came to show up to conferences and participate in those. So that is all data that we can provide for you.
Great. The next, policy was 1120, Board of Education meetings, about the speaking form. Oh, page 23, sorry. Yeah. About the speaking form, so number 2, Stratford residents shall sign the public speaking form, available or online, prior to the start of the meeting, but it needs to be given to the board secretary according to the bylaws as well, so we should add that in too.
Okay. So it would read, any Stratford resident who wishes to address the board shall sign the public form available in the board meeting or online, and giving.
And submit it to the board
recording
secretary.
secretary. And submitted to recording secretary before the start of the meeting. Okay. We'll just take that as an amendment, if that, so a motion to amend. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Kennedy. Any other discussion on the amendment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
And then my third comment was on the professional development opportunities, page 31, policy number 2112. There was a change made, I see why the language was changed from equitable, or from innovative to equitable, but I think it should be both equitable and innovative. They're two very different meaning terms. And we should also be providing innovative programming for our teachers who aspire to be administrators. I don't think we need to cut that out, so. Yep, so moved.
So,
That's an amendment.
an amendment to, for the sentence to read equitable and innovative program should be developed. Made by Mr.
Second.
Dell.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. O'Brien. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Which one is that? Yeah, 2131 was.
Oh, it is? Okay, so my comment here, page 33, policy number 2131, superintendent of schools, general duties. I think, I'd like to amend this, and I'm not sure exactly how yet, but maybe it needs to go back to the policy committee. The nomination of employees to include the personnel committee for certain levels of hiring for the administrative positions that as we've been enacting.
Which sentence are you, Mr. O'Brien?
Well, I'm not in a specific sentence. I'm not sure how this needs to be amended yet. It needs to include the step of the personnel committee approving.
In his general duties?
Correct.
So why don't, if you want to refine that a little, do you want to bring it back at the second read?
I'm happy to do that. I just
Okay.
didn't have a whole lot of time to think about that, generally how that needs to read.
And that would probably be in the second paragraph?
Correct, that's correct. And then on the second page of that policy, page 34 of our packet, there's the reference to substitute teachers, approving a list of substitute teachers. We use Kelly now. We don't have our own list of substitutes, I don't believe. Do we still carry a list of our own, or they have all been moved over to Kelly?
All of our subs have been moved
over to Kelly, we do have some building subs that still, you know, work just solely for us, but I would, you know, I'm still overseeing Kelly, right? So I don't know if you wanna take those kind of duties out.
No, I don't, I just wanted to ask about it, I don't wanna take it out,
We still have a couple building subs that are ours.
Right, but those building subs are assigned to the buildings. This is not, from this approved list, the superintendent shall make such assignments to duty as vacancies may require.
We don't do that.
Right, I just wanted to, maybe we need to rework that a little bit too,
And
to
so
represent what we're doing now.
Currently, when you call Kelly, do they provide you any type of a list? Or do they, you just?
Ms. Brown has all of the approved subs from Kelly, and as people put things in and subs take jobs, there's a program, you can see it. So she knows when they're filled and not filled, and where they go, and that ties in with our power schools.
The subs who are approved though for for Stratford, or are on the Stratford list, go into the system on any given morning or evening, whatever their timing is, and they can choose which jobs, right? So it's not necessarily that we're appointing somebody to that position.
But the superintendent shall establish a format of approved substitutes? Or a system of approved?
I think it's, again, just outdated.
Yeah.
It's just outdated.
Right.
There's now Kelly Services systems that do this, so we just probably wanna look.
I just
at
think the
wording.
superintendent shall oversee the substitute process is enough to say.
The only thing I would caution against is we hired Kelly Services a year ago. If we go to the old way.
Even if we went to the old way, the superintendent was not assigning subs.
Correct.
That's not how that worked.
Okay.
So I just think that needs to be reworked. There should definitely still be oversight there, but I think it needs to be
You
reworked.
wanna work maybe with Ms. Borges and Ms. Brown?
Sure.
Coming up with language for that?
For both sections, I
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay.
I do.
Yep.
On page 19, there's still a lot of parents and guardian approval on there. I think we're trying to change it to legal custodian and parents. So, on 4, it says parental or guardian approval should be legal custodian. Then 5, parents who want their student interviewed, it should be parent or legal custodian there. Keep going down, there's another parent on the last paragraph there. Should be parent or legal custodian.
On the bottom.
Yep.
Teresa, were you able to get all those?
I am.
And actually on the last page, on the next page over too, it says parents may change their student's permission at any time. I know, I think when we gave this to Teresa, we had asked her to do it all for us. We tried to pick up as many as possible, but she, I'm sure she's.
There were a lot of policies.
Yes. Yes. So then, just, I don't think we need a motion, but just if we could, Teresa, maybe proofread that, if anybody sees any, if they wanna email them over to her, just kind of scrub through that and change all of those. Anything else? So the motion was made, to accept, this is the first reading, it is currently amended, so, look for a new motion to accept the amended version as the first read. So, moved by Mr. O'Brien, seconded by Mr. Dow. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. All right, now on the next two. I don't know if Mr. Delapiano, you want to kind of guide us through these? I know this was kind of your baby.
Sure.
I see you out there, we might as well put you to work.
Thanks. Always willing to help out. Check, just make sure the mic's on. Good.
I want you
What
to have
about the
to.
job about your age?
Ooh, that was rough.
That was rough.
It's an ongoing joke.
Okay.
But you held
Not
your
that
own.
old.
You held your own.
But you
Not
held
that
your
old.
own, I bet.
Yeah.
Oh, I was the MVP, in my mind. So, online courses, policy 6172.6. The main focus here was we had current language that discussed the fact that
any online course, students were limited to 4 credits for an online course. But since summer school is now an online course, and Apex Learning is offered for not only remedial courses, but also for kind of real-time course credit, we felt it best to eliminate that from the language in our policy. That's pretty much a substantial change there. You know, students go to summer school, unfortunately. We've used Apex now for a couple of years through the state of Connecticut for students who need remedial work, and now it's afforded to students to kind of advancement as far as programmatic and credit-wise during school. Also, students who may be in the DCF care also use Virtual Academy, which is considered a virtual course too, so we don't want to limit some of those needy kids to only receiving 4 credits virtually.
And you removed the substantial section at the end?
Yes.
Is that?
It was all to do with that 4 credits.
Okay.
There was some language in there taught by a certified teacher, but because it's a different setup now than it was in the past, that was removed as well.
So look for a motion to accept as a first read.
So
Moved by Mr. O'Brien, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. Any other discussion? Oh, then Mr. Cormier, I'm sorry.
Can I say one thing?
Yes. Well, I'm gonna open it up to
Okay.
discussion, so. Yeah. Go ahead.
Dr. Piazza came and joined us at Stratford High School with Dr. Graff and also counselors from both Stratford and Bunnell to discuss both of these policies to ensure that what we were doing was the correct vision for Stratford in line with state statute and represents best practice for our students.
Any questions, discussion?
I just wanted a comment from the from our policy committee. Hearing your concern for students who are coming in from another district or from another country, the way the plan that's now in place, that would be in place through this, to allow to match up their classes with the credits that they would have earned if they were here, so that they wouldn't have just, if they were 3 years in, they wouldn't have just 1 year transferring in and have to complete 2 extra years here. The concern, the way you guys are working on preparing that committee to evaluate credits to give them their full value, I think it's a much better policy than stopping them when they're just trying.
I appreciate that, and that's why we couldn't look at the transfer of credit policy without looking at the online courses policy. One was too connected with the other, so we looked at both of them.
Any discussion? Then, all those in favor of accepting as first read?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. And then the second one.
Yep. Policy 6172.61 is on transfer of credits. Our current policy read that we could only accept transfer credits from students if they are coming to us from an accredited high school in the United States. And as we know, over the past 5 years, we've seen an influx of students from everywhere. We've always had students come from different countries, which is part of our diversity, which we celebrate daily. But recently we have this, and I know Dr. Graff and I spoke about it with our school counselors. We felt it best that we accept credits from a secondary school. And this is where the counselors go through a pretty exhausting process of looking up that school. Sometimes it requires contacting other countries, sometimes it requires translation, but trying to best match the courses that they took and received credit for prior to attending the Stratford High School. Pair up the best we can. There's something in our program of studies to ensure they get credit for classes, which they did. So now in the past, we weren't able to accept credits for students unless it was an accredited high school. Now we'll be able to.
So I would look for a motion to accept as first reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Dell. Second by Mr. Cormier. Any questions or discussion?
I noticed a couple more parents in the third paragraph there. Actually, three in that one paragraph.
I just also want to commend the group for collaborating, for working with each other, for both of the schools talking through this, for making sure they had student voice and teacher voice, because this is an equity issue, right? So updating this policy to be more up to date with what we do today and how we welcome our students in today is vital. So this was really good work, and I appreciate the hard work that the committee put into putting this forward to that first read.
So,
And also in the first paragraph, a couple more parents, Lisa.
this would be the first read. On the second read, we'll scour it and ensure that all the genders and descriptions are correct. Anything else?
Thank you.
All those in favor of accepting of the first read?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Mr. Cormier, this is yours.
Policy 6153 is the field trip policy. Following last year's, the Bell students, where came in and petitioned us to approve a day trip to Lake Havasu, I think they went to. Staying in state, but going to an amusement park is their senior activity. And up until then, it had been our policy not to approve that. Their presentation was outstanding. They were very well prepared. They presented well, and because of that, we opted to revise the policy. There are still many limits on it, such as it's on a case-by-case basis. It's only for grades 8 and 12, so it wouldn't be for 6 because they're still kind of young to be able to go on trips like that where they're responsible for themselves a lot. 8th grade and 12th grade. So, and it would have to be with approval by the board. And that's what we wanted. So we also outlined the amount of time that's needed to approve a field trip. We also made the changes to parent or legal custodian. And we also edited that the dress code isn't part of that, since we already revised our dress code. And sometimes if you're going to like a water park, the dress code we have written wouldn't quite apply to this. So the dress code is what the standards set for the field trip, not necessarily our school dress code. And then the permission slips for each type of trip were revised to reflect that trip.
And can you talk about your thinking on page 41, the third paragraph? Deliberation into that.
The third one?
Yeah, when a field trip is costly?
So when a field trip is costly, parents must be offered a budget payment plan coordinating with the school, PTOs, or other volunteer support organizations. So we don't have a pot to take money from to cover these, but we're saying if parents and legal custodians are unable to pay, their child participate, we can work on trying to find a full or partial scholarship, and we'll seek one, and the administration will help coordinate the obtaining of funds when made aware of the circumstances causing the need. We're basically going to do our best to do fundraising. The schools and the organizations that support the school will work to fundraise, but we don't have that money to supplement there.
And then pages 51 and 52 were already permission slips that the attorneys put together for us.
Last year when the ladies petitioned us, we had our attorneys review the permission slips and our insurance, and the permission slips were revised, and our insurance does cover the students as they're off campus.
So, I look for a motion to accept as a first read.
So moved.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to it.
Okay.
Moved by Mr. O'Brien, second by Mr. Cormier. I'll open up the discussion. Ms. D'Angelo Powers.
There's just a few parents that need the legal custodian added. So in the third paragraph, saw one, there's a few throughout here, so that's one thing. And then some of the schools don't have PTOs or PTAs, and they may at times have them and other times may not have them. So what would be the default in that case? What kind of organizations are we?
I personally, Jill, can I just
Yeah,
talk on to you?
definitely.
I know most of the PTAs in the town that do exist, when they exist, will absolutely help support these things. But I think this needs to read, when a field trip is costly, parents must be offered a budget payment plan through the school. I don't think we can tie PTA or PTOs to doing that. They're a separate organization. They are not government organizations. And I also think that there's other fundraising efforts and things like that that go forward to, snap raises and the Raise app and all of that kind of stuff, those are all offered as options too.
We
do
did
quite often.
expand it to say PTA, PTOs, or other volunteer support organizations.
No, I know, I think we need to take PTA and PTOs out, because that's gonna be the first
It would
default.
say coordinated through the school or other volunteer support organizations. And
Yeah,
volunteer
'cause-
support organizations would cover PTO, PTA.
Yeah, I think that would be, because the first thing will be to the PTA, PTOs, and that's strapping on those organizations too. They're hard pressed as it is for volunteers, money, et cetera, so.
Okay with
Yeah.
that? So the amendment would be, when a field trip or compare must be offered a budget plan coordinated with the school or other volunteer support organizations, and removing the PTA, PTOs. Okay. Made by Ms. Vidal, seconded by Mr. Cormier. Ms. Borges.
First, I just want to thank you, Mr. Cormier, for tackling this in your group. I think it's important for you to acknowledge and realize that a student group came to you last year. A student group advocated for you to look at this policy, and you listened. And that's what we just told our students today, is that they can be leaders and they can ignite change. And they actually did that. So I think while you're voting on this one, I think it's important for you to remember that this was student initiated. And I'm impressed that the students advocated, that they presented, but I'm also impressed that as a Board of Education, you have chosen to listen and to revamp something to meet their needs.
So then, in that vein, would we want it to say coordinated with school, student groups, or other?
No, I think the amendment is appropriate.
So any other discussion on the amendment?
Do you want to add to that amendment, the parent legal custodian, any of their risk?
Well, let's do that. Let's have all that cleaned up on it, because there's a number of them, so. All right, all those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Anything else? So then I would look for a motion to approve the amended policy as first read. Mr. Cormier, second by Mr. O'Brien. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. That concludes our work on policy, and I know Mr. O'Brien has said it, and Ms. Borges has too, but this policy committee has really done a ton of work, and there have been a lot of old, outdated policies that have sat for way too long. We've put in monumental efforts to get it done. We've created a policy committee that's really diverse, wide-ranging. There's a ton of different opinions, and I think we're not done yet, but we're making some great headway on it. There's still work to be done. We've actually picked our next group of topics that we're going to be moving on to, and we will be moving forward with those.
I just want to add to this committee, such a diverse committee, including people like Jack from Stratford High, Chris and Mike from the board, and other principals. We have a member of the community, and they put so much time in outside of the meeting. That's where all the work gets done. At the meeting, we just go through it all. But they give so much time, they should be thanked and recognized for that.
All right, now on to the fun part. Redistricting project recommendations, school plan planning. This board had already approved the scenario one. We sent it back to planning to look at various scenarios of implementation. We had added a number of administrators, teachers, staff to give us some insight on some of the school inner workings and help give us some guidance, which we did, and we basically came up with 3 different proposals. One was, there's a Lordship Flex Zone. Currently, those students go to Worcester and Stratford High. It was Mr. Griggs' suggestion basically what that would do, because there are equal resources at both the schools, that would put a higher number of students at the Worcester, Stratford High, course, direction. So what he had suggested, we take those flex zones, which I think will be 25 in this current year, and move their track from Worcester over to Flood and Bunnell, which would give, make this school, the class sizes more equitable and put equal stress on the resources. Am I covered?
Yes, closer to equal.
Okay.
Let's say, yeah.
So I'll read through these and kind of give you a description, and then we'll take them up for discussion. So, and then any other discussion we may like to have.
Mr. Henner, can I just ask one favor? When we take them up for discussion, can we do them one by one?
Can I just give
No,
the
like
highlights?
after you go over
Yes,
each one, like-
absolutely, yes. We'll go through each one. I'll just give you the highlights, and then we'll circle back. We'll take up each one for discussion, and then I'll open it up to any other discussion. So the Franklin Flex Zone to be granted an opportunity to move into a closer school if space permits at the superintendent's discretion and done by a lottery system, which is included in the minutes of the meeting. So, Carla, this last name?
Armstead.
Armstead, I'm sorry, it's late. My ability to remember names is getting worse, so. She had suggested that there's a number of students in her school who come from this zone. It's historically been districted up to Chapel because of the space restrictions in Franklin. There's some of the, I guess, some of the kids with the largest financial needs, and she felt it made it difficult for those students to be 100% involved in some of the community events. We looked at a bunch of scenarios to try and remedy that, but we weren't able to come up with. We worked with SLAM and had a number of discussions, but weren't able to come up with it. This was our best solution to it. If space opens up in Franklin or a closer school, those children and only those children can apply for a waiver to get into that closer school if space allows at the superintendent's discretion, and it would be done through a lottery system.
Yeah, the only thing I would want to add, just to make sure that you're clear, is that Dr. Armstead was advocating for the families within that zone to have a voice and an opportunity to apply for that lottery. Not that they're not completely welcomed at Chapel. She loves all her students and wants all her students to feel welcomed. But I think it's important to know that what she was advocating for was a choice and an opportunity if there was an open spot.
And then the third, only high school students will remain where they are, grades 9 through 11. All other students move to scenario 1 redistricting. And also, if a family decided that they wanted their siblings to stay together, they would all go to the redistricted school, not the waivered school. So if a 10th grader and an 8th grader coming up were to want to stay together, the 10th grader would move to the redistricted school, not the 8th grader move to the waivered school. So those basically were the three scenarios we came up with. Again, it was all three were unanimous votes. We had a wide array of administrators from all levels and our planning committee. So, but I'll open up for discussion. We'll start with number 1, number 8. Yeah.
Can I just ask a quick clarifying question? Where is the Lordship Flex Zone again? What description?
You need to pull up the map.
Like Elm Street area.
That's the Elm Street area, that one, okay, I just wanna make sure.
So then I would look for a motion to approve stipulation A. So moved. Mr. O'Brien, seconded by? Second by Mr. Dow. Any discussion?
I make a motion to amend this current motion to go back to the SLAM's original recommendation for the Lordship Flex Zone. We hired SLAM for their original proposal to balance the enrollment needs and community input and have the least amount of disruption. This is going to disrupt the outcome for these students where their trajectory is. So right now they're Stratford High and Worcester, and this is going to disrupt them to be going to Bunnell and Flood. So when we voted on the proposed SLAM study,
We voted on one, and that was one of the criteria we used, was for it to be the least disruptive. And this is gonna disrupt them, and they're not gonna be going to school with their peers, they're gonna be going to school in a different way. So it's gonna change their trajectory.
So a motion to amend by Ms. D'Angelo Powers, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Carol Fabian. Mr. Griggs, would you like to speak on that, since you were the initiator of it, if you want to come up and give us your thoughts?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Since the first redistricting, when Johnson was demagnetized, there became an imbalance between Flood and Worcester, the school populations. Upwards of 90 kids some years. This year it's right around 60. And that, like Mr. Henrik said, having the similar or the same resources, teachers and such does, have larger class sizes and different opportunities at Worcester. And just looking at Slam's presentation, in that small area prior to the first redistricting, kids in that area did go to Flood. I was not surprised, but a little bit surprised that they didn't still continue with us. I thought they were still with us from that area. So prior to that of the redistricting, students from this Wood End, Gregory Circle, Elm Street, like you mentioned, did come through the Flood and Bunnell pathway. It shifts about 25 kids this year, and it's between 25 and 15 for the coming years, all the way down to kindergarten, which would add 25 kids to Flood next year and take 25 kids away from Worcester, which brings us to within, with this year's numbers, within about 5 or 10 students as opposed to 60. So those imbalances impact families in a lot of ways. Just this year we've had people that were excited to move into a district, Worcester district, where they could see or walk to a middle school. When they came to registration, they were told they had to go to Flood. So we had some people that were, taking it out on us as a school, the registration process, and we had to explain to them that it wasn't a school issue, it was a registration and a population and a districting issue. So, we currently have kids that can see Worcester and come to Flood for various reasons, and we're trying to eliminate some of that by opening up space at Worcester so they're not full for new registrations. So if a new registration does move into the Worcester district and can see it, they can actually go there. Right now, they don't have that opportunity.
I'm curious, we just had the conversation about Dr. Armisen being concerned with the Franklin kids coming to being in at Second Hill Lane, Chapel, and the continuity there, the community, the community events, the activities. How is this any different when we're moving the Lordship Flex Zone, moving them up to the northern schools? How is that different? Because now they're further away from their community.
We haven't had participation issues in that. I don't have the same concerns that Dr. Armstead has. Like I said, the students and families from this district will have kids in their neighborhood. There's multiple street addresses on the same street, so they will go to school with their neighbor that lives in the same street as them. And like I said before, this neighborhood and this section that we're talking about did attend Flood historically up until the prior redistricting.
So, yes, so they've already moved 5 years ago, and now we're gonna move them again. It's a disservice to these kids.
So those 25 kids though will travel together. I mean, the neighborhood itself will travel together to
That's all.
Flood.
Yeah.
We're not cherry picking a few kids, but the entire neighborhood. 25 kids is the incoming class.
Mm-hmm.
Will move over to Flood, so they will be moving with their neighborhood.
To that point though, they might not all go to the same school. Some might go to Lordship School and some might go to Johnson, because that's the flex zone. So depending on enrollment at that year, they could go to either of those schools. So they might not even, just because they live next door to them, they're not in the same school necessarily, currently.
To Ms. D'Angelo's Powers' original point, right, we originally selected scenario 1 because it presented as the option that would affect the least number of children while addressing our key concerns. This is now adding additional children that will be impacted. Additionally, I'd just like to point out that there's been no communication or opportunity provided to the students or parents that are now going to be directly affected by the proposed changes to the flex zones. That was something that was discussed in the committee. That wasn't something that was discussed with those people, and most people probably saw the initial, okay, they chose scenario 1, oh look, I'm not affected. But yet, now there are new families that will be affected once again in the South End. The community was informed about the initial scenario that was chosen. These new changes being introduced by the committee have not been shared or discussed with those impacted. The families affected have not been given the opportunity to provide input or voice their concerns, which is a significant oversight, I believe, in this process. We wanted community input, and now we just added additional families to be impacted with no conversation or a chance to voice their concerns.
Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, I just.
Are you done? I'm sorry.
I am.
Just to oppose that, these meetings have been going on for several months, more than several months, almost a year.
I understand.
And people haven't had a chance to watch them, they've had a chance to speak about it. There's a lot of people that have spoken about it.
But
There
not,
are several people who have spoken about it.
the Wilcoxon parents have spoken about it.
A few.
We're now talking about something that was discussed in the subcommittee that I'm sure most people have not stayed up to date on. And this was something that came out of their last meeting to change this flex zone. So there really hasn't been an opportunity for that area to be brought up to speed, that we are modifying scenario 1, that it will now impact them.
And the committee thought that it was,
The committee
Was
unanimous-
unanimous.
voted
Unanimous vote, right?
unanimously for it, yes. And the flex zone, I think, was created through this SLAM presentation.
The Lordship Flex Zone was in scenario 1, yes, the Lordship Flex Zone
The
attending
change, though?
flood was not.
Yeah,
And I
but-
think it's just important to remember, redistricting is challenging, it's difficult, it requires a lot of thought, and I commend Mr. Grigas for bringing up an idea that actually adds more students to his school. And the reason he brought that idea up is for equity, and is because he wants to allow students to be able to attend their neighborhood school. And for the last 2 years, we have closed Worcester to registrations because they have had too many kids funneling in that direction. And so I commend you for that. I commend you for bringing up the emotional toil it may cause if we do have to move students, and I commend you for bringing up that community input is important. I do think it's important to remember that redistricting is challenging and difficult. It is not personal. It is a difficult decision we are making to try our best to make sure every student in this district has access to an equitable education. And yes, class size does matter for that. So I can see all of the different sides, and I ask that we just try not to be emotional as we are trying to make these decisions, because it is gonna become even more challenging for you. But I do commend everybody because all of those sides are valid. Everything everyone is saying is a valid, reasonable comment to make. And it's gonna be a very difficult decision for you as a board to decide the direction you're gonna go, amendments, no amendments, whether you vote tonight, whether you vote later. These are difficult things for you to do. So breathe, take a break if you need to, but remember that these are the decisions that are gonna help guide our redistricting for next year.
And so to that point too, one of the key components to this process was to create an equitable education for all students. And by doing this, you're a detriment, you're taking on 25 more kids, or, it creates a better educational environment for all those students. The flex zone was created in scenario 1. It's just a shift on its high school.
But it would emotionally impact those 25 students, so we have to acknowledge that. It's a decision, and it is a decision that comes with an equitable outcome of a distribution for our middle schools. But it's not a decision that comes without an impact.
What is the plan if there is any, sorry, Mr. Rivas.
That's okay.
What is the plan if there is any plan in place right now to notify these families? How soon are we gonna notify these families? By letter, by meeting, by any notification?
So this has been a process from the beginning. The next step of this process is you, as a Board of Education, figuring out when you're going to make your determinations, your votes, your amendments, your allotments, your waivers, whatever rules you're gonna go with this. Once that is done, whether that is this month, next month, or January, the district then takes the plan that you approved and we begin the rollout of that plan, which means each of those principals will be given the green light to reach out to their new affected families to start to invite them into the district, to be able to say, come visit Flood, here is a step up night, here's what we're going to be able to do to support you. We can start to plan our summers, we can start to plan, the new registrations. So as soon as a vote goes through, that is approved, with whatever stipulations this board decides to put with it, then my administrative team can start communicating with families. It'll be done via writing. It'll be done via open nights for people to come in. We will probably have some community forums. I already am thinking in the back of my head a suggestion from Ms. D'Angelo Powers about community coffees and getting out there and talking with people. Because what we need to see is that all of our schools have amazing staff that want to welcome these students in. But we need time to do that job. So, when that happens, whether that's December, January, I hope it doesn't go beyond February. But whenever that happens, that's when the key gets turned over to the district to start rolling things out and making sure our families are comfortable.
Any other discussion on the amendment? We'll have a roll call vote. Ms. Carol Fabian?
As amended, yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
No.
Ms. Madell?
No.
Mr. Kennedy? No. Mr. Cormier?
As amended, yes.
Ms. D'Angelo Powers?
Yes.
The chair votes no, the amendment fails. So we'll go back to the original discussion on the lordship flood zone, moving to the flood for now. Any further discussion on that item? Roll call vote. Ms. Carol Fabian?
No.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Cormier?
No.
Ms. D'Angelo Powers?
No.
Chair votes yes, that motion passes 4-3. All right, the Franklin Flex Zone students to be granted an opportunity to move to closer school if space permits and at the superintendent's discretion and done by the lottery system. For a motion to approve.
So moved.
By Mr. O'Brien,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Bedell. Discussion. Mr. Cormier.
I'd like to move to amend the current proposal to grant students residing in the Franklin Flex Zone the opportunity to attend Franklin School provided space permits and at the discretion of the superintendent.
Okay, it was at a closer school, but it was Franklin. Franklin was included in that.
I'm making it specific to Franklin, the Franklin Flex Zone students, parents requesting that their kids could continue to attend Franklin.
But doesn't that limit it a little bit?
They're not in Franklin right now?
If they're,
I think what you're saying is, instead of saying they could go to Nichols, if Nichols had an open spot, because it's closer, he's saying let's make sure this is really narrowed to say you get a spot in Franklin if Franklin has an opening. If Franklin doesn't have an opening, then you go to Chapel, and I would support that.
Is that your intent?
I think I said that correctly, Chris, did I?
Would you want to, we can, okay, so we have a motion, so it would be, so that those kids in that Franklin Flex Zone, or that.
Well, the idea is not having kids pushed into another school just because there's an opening.
Okay.
Letting them, if they can, if the space is there, stay at their school.
Well, currently they're in Chapel.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
where they'll be going.
So every school is closer to Franklin than Chapel. Chapel's the furthest school. So if you leave it to all the schools, they could eventually, that flex zone, if there's space open at any of those schools, be put into any of those. So what I think Chris is trying to say is if space opens at Franklin, then they can apply for that waiver and the lottery system go into effect then. So the same concept, but specifically to Franklin, like Ms.
but
Ford just
is that
said.
meaning only Franklin
Only
or, see, I think that limits the possibilities, because if they could go to Nichols or Johnson instead of going to Chapel.
But then you're
why
providing
would we do that?
busing across all those different schools for that one neighborhood.
I actually think making it just Franklin is honestly probably more streamlined, because we're trying to move away from waivers.
Right.
Right? So when you open up, there's always gonna be an opening at some other
Well, that wouldn't be a waiver, that would be a lottery.
Well, it's a waivered lottery, right? Because you have to apply for it, and then you get put into the lottery and selected if there's an opening in your grade. So I actually think it would make it easier for your superintendent to manage, because you know the openings in Franklin, to narrow it. And, you know, I was controversial on this one in general, because, you know, you can't just make Franklin bigger. So, you know, I do think that's actually not that I don't get to vote, my opinion doesn't matter, but this is a decent suggestion to streamline it to make it clear.
Well, your opinion does matter, that's why we're asking.
That's my opinion.
So if there was a spot open at Nichols instead of Chapel, they wouldn't be able to take that?
No.
Was that the intent of your motion, Mr. Foreman?
Yes.
Okay. The motion was made, was it seconded?
Second.
Second by Ms. Carol Fabian. Any discussion on it?
Just to add to that, and to Ms. Borges's point and Mr. Cormier's, you know, one of the things I think additionally that we have to consider is that this change would impact families with, multiple children, perhaps. So, for example, if a second grader from the Franklin Flex Zone was able to waive or get a thing and was put into Nichols, what happens that following year if they have a kindergartner sibling and they can't secure a spot there? So now you're gonna have kids in two different buildings. You following what I'm saying? So.
I thought the intention was to keep siblings together though.
Right, but you can't guarantee that. So what if there's an opening in second grade at Nichols but not in kindergarten at Nichols?
I also think it's important to remember, if this is a waiver lottery, and let's say you applied for it, and then you had a sibling the following year and you thought about it, it's a waiver lottery, you can go back to Chapel, right? So you can still keep your children together. I can't always guarantee a spot, especially in a tiny school like Franklin, where the spots are limited. So, I think keeping it limited is a positive thing.
And myself personally, I'm not opposed to it either way. Our intent was to make it more accessible to those kids, and we were told those are the kids with the greatest financial needs. So the intent was to make a closer school where they could be part of the community more accessible. But again, if this is up to the board that, you know, we decide we want to keep them in Franklin, I personally would not be opposed to that. So, any other discussion on the amendment? All right, roll call vote. Ms. Carol Fabian.
As amended, yes.
Yes.
Mr. Bell.
As amended, no.
As amended, yes.
Mr. Cormier.
As amended, yes.
As amended, yes.
Chair votes yes. So the motion passes 6-1. That is the final vote on that. I guess we don't have to do a final vote as amended. And then the last, only high school students remain where they are grades 9 through 11, although the students move to scenario 1 redistricting. And again, if a sibling, parents wanted to keep, it's in the minutes, parents wanted to keep siblings together, they would go to the redistricted school, not the waived school. So I look for a motion to approve this, and approve the.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Bell.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ryan. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to amend the grandfathering provisions for students.
Okay.
I move to amend the current proposal to extend the grandfathering provisions beyond grades 9 through 12. Specifically, I propose that students entering 6th grade in the upcoming school year can complete their elementary years in the schools they are currently enrolled in before transitioning to their middle school or possibly their new pathways. Students entering 8th grade can remain in their current middle school for their final year, ensuring continuity and minimizing disruption during this critical academic and social transition period. And that students with IEPs and 504 plans be considered for waivers to remain in their current schools on a case-by-case review to determine what is in the best interest of each child, ensuring their individual needs are prioritized.
Motion by Ms. Carol Fabian to amend consent.
Second.
Second by Ms. Angela Powers. Discussion on the amendment. So I can, well, I'll speak for myself then. So the final part, the IEPs, and that we've heard from the professionals, and we said we should rely on the professionals with the services will be provided to those children. I would only be in favor of waiving the high school. Any other move, and just personally, I would rather see my sixth grader move, or my fifth grader, my sixth grader move over as the big fish. When they come into the sixth grade, they would be the big fish in a new elementary school as opposed to being a new fish in the middle school. I think, and one of the scenarios, the survey, we had taken 72% of staff felt that sixth graders should be in the higher grade. So I think moving them over now allows them, I wouldn't be in favor of waiving, then it becomes a logistical nightmare trying to ship all those kids around. Busing would be astronomically expensive, and I don't know that it necessarily serves the best interest of the kids. So I would be in favor of it as presented, but not the other parts of it. So, Mr. Cormier.
To use your analogy, the original survey with the teachers was about moving sixth grade and combining it into middle school. It wasn't about moving the kids around in different schools, in different elementary schools. That's not accurate. But the big fish in a new little pond, the idea of this is they finish one process and make a transition at a natural transition time, which is at the end of sixth grade, as they would normally go into middle school. Then they make the transition to their new pathway. And then in eighth grade, they do eighth grade, they would then, going to ninth grade, would make that transition into their new pathway. They would at least finish the path they started. It's by the end of, within 2 years, after this year, after next year, it would be that issue would be gone for elementary and middle school.
Jump in on this. This is one of the most heart-wrenching decisions to make, right? To decide who gets waivers, who doesn't get waivers, to look at how deep you go, right? During Stratford's original redistricting years ago, it was everybody moved. You know, there'll always be a fifth grade class, Chris, and that's where I get worried. I don't value this sixth grade, these incoming sixth graders, any more than next year's incoming sixth graders or the year after's incoming sixth graders. One of those grades is going to be affected and moved. Whether you do a waiver this year and say any incoming sixth grader gets to stay, the following year you have now gotten fifth graders who will move. It doesn't solve that whole problem.
But they've already been moved. Right, so they're gonna have been moved. It'd be a 1 year, one-time thing for these rising sixth and rising eighth graders, because everyone else underneath them will have been moved during this move this year, or that next year. So it would be just this one-time thing for these one group of kids, because especially with several of these families, listen, I went through the redistricting, and my child was not affected because they were not at Stratford Academy. However, I saw firsthand how disruptive it was for those families when children were forced to change schools during their final year of elementary school. This transition particularly cut short relationships, sense of community. Students feel over the longest stretch of their public education journey. They're not in any other grade level this long. High school's 4 years, middle school's 2 years. This is 8 years of their life that they led up to this final moment to be that big fish in this small pond. And we're ripping that away from them. If a student's, and then for some of these kids, their entire pathway is changing. They will never be with their friends again, right? For the Wilcoxon kids, they will be shifting to Chapel, which will shift their pathway to Flood and Bunnell. While the rest of the kids that they've gone all these elementary years with informed friendships will be moving on to Worcester and Stratford High. I just feel we can grant them this 1 year for the sixth graders and eighth graders to finish out where they are. And then if their position changes or their pathway changes, they have the understanding that after this, they move.
What about siblings?
Well, that's an issue, like to have, then the family has to make a decision, right?
So you'd only be granting the sixth graders, the sibling would have to move.
The sibling would have to move, or the parent would have to decide if they didn't want to leave their child to stay. I mean, it's a tough decision and I understand that, but at least you're giving these sixth graders that option.
I mean, there's other things like the sixth grade committee, the PTAs, they've been fundraising for all these years so that they can have a good last year. So it'll be very disruptive, and they're going into a new school that may not have done any fundraising. Who knows how it's gonna be, because I'm not familiar with that, but they deserve to have that experience that the parents and the community have put together for them. Another thing, Lisa's point about the IEPs, and I agree that I think our staff is wonderful across the district, and these kids are gonna be taken care of across the district. The part that concerns me is the students with exceptionalities oftentimes have difficulties forming friendships and making bonds, and because of their exceptionalities. And as a student myself with exceptionalities when I was in school, the thought of having to lose my very few friends would be devastating, and definitely an offset on my educational journey, because I would be very upset by that. So I think that we really should consider on a case-by-case basis, like Lisa had suggested, for students with exceptionalities and IEPs 504 plans.
I think we should take those two issues separately. I think the students with exceptionalities.
Would you like to divide the question into 3 parts?
Sure.
Or even, I would suggest, just it's up to you, I would suggest making this 6th grade and 8th grade a high school, and then 504, and then IEPs.
As it stands, right, it says high school, so I would move to amend the current proposal to extend the grandfathering provisions beyond grades 9 through 12. Specifically, students entering 6th grade in the upcoming school year can complete their elementary years in the school they are currently enrolled in before transitioning. Do you want to leave it at that and then take on the 6th grade one? 8th grade one?
Let's do one age group at a time.
Okay.
Do the 6th grade, and then the 8th grade, and then the 12th grade. So it'll be 4 different motions. You might have better success that way.
Okay, well,
Just a suggestion.
so I'm not motioning to, amending, like, the high school students, grade 9 through 11?
Well, let's take, because there could be further discussion, let's start with just the high school students, because we can add further discussion. So let's take a vote on just the high school students first, and then the 6th grade, then the 8th grade, and then students with exceptionalities.
All right, so how do you want to phrase that then, Mr. Henry? Because right now it says only high school students will remain. So my amendment was to include more than just high school students, so.
Let's just leave it at high school students will remain where they are.
Okay, so a motion to amend so that it reads high school students will remain where they are, grades 9 through 11.
Motion by Ms. Carol Fabian.
Second.
Second by Ms. Padel. Any discussion on the amended motion? Roll call vote. Ms. Carol Fabian.
As amended, yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
As amended, yes.
Ms. Padel.
As amended, yes.
Ms. Kennedy.
Yes.
Mr. Cormier.
As amended, yes.
Ms. D'Angelo Powers.
As amended, yes.
And chair votes yes. So, high school students will remain where they are, grades 9 to 11, all other and then we'll just cross off the all other students part, and then, students who wish to, siblings would go to the redistricted school unless, right, there would be no waivers for siblings, well, just high school students at this point. High school students, it says high school student, well, the motion was that high school students will remain where they are, grades 9 through 11, okay? All right, you wanna tackle 8th next?
Sure. 8th or 6th?
Your choice.
Don't? Okay. I move to amend the current proposal to extend the grandfathering provisions beyond grades 9 through 11. Specifically, I propose that students entering 8th grade can remain in their current middle school for their final year, ensuring continuity and minimizing disruption during this critical academic and social transition period.
Motion by. Second by Mr. Cormier, discussion. Again, I'll just, I'm only in favor of the high school, it's my own personal opinion, I'm not, so I want to open it up, but, I'll just put it out to the board and you'll vote as you see appropriate, so,
Can I ask a clarifying
Yeah.
question? Would they have to stay or could they stay?
They don't have to say if they don't, but I want the option there if they choose and want to finish out at their school that they've begun.
The way it was worded, it sounded like 8th graders would stay, and some parents may feel that.
I said can remain.
Okay. I just want to make sure that if a parent, you know, I would want my child to go get to know some of their new high school friends. So I would want them to move in middle school. Our middle schools are a quick transition anyway. They're in and they're out. So I don't want to pigeonhole people.
Right, but I just want to give the option to those that would like to remain to be able to remain.
Just want to make sure I understand.
So the motion was that 8th graders can remain at their existing, and students entering the 8th grade can remain at their,
Current middle school for their final year.
Last question, I promise. If it does get approved, I want to make sure that we have a process. So can remain, do they need to send a waiver in requesting that they want to remain? Is that then approved? Is it just, because we have to have structure, right? So I need to know, do they have a deadline? Do you have to make that decision by a deadline so that we can make sure that we have transportation set up, so that we can make sure that, you know, we make appropriate classes and your class schedule is made? So.
being that that would be an administrative policy, do you want to handle that, set the dates and
Sure.
move forward from there? Any other discussion? On the, I'll just call it the amended motion, Ms. Carl-Vivian?
Yes.
Ms. O'Brien?
No.
Ms. Adele?
No.
Mr. Kennedy? Mr. Cormier?
Yes.
Ms. Angela Powers?
Yes.
And the chair votes no. Motion fails 3 to 4. Sixth grade.
I move to amend the current proposal to extend the grandfathering provisions beyond 9 through 12. Specifically, I propose that students entering 6th grade in the upcoming school year can complete their elementary years in the school they are currently enrolled in before transitioning to their new pathway or new grade level.
Motion and a second.
Second.
Mrs. Barros, discussion
Yes.
on the amendment to allow 6th graders to be grandfathered in. Mr. Duff.
We're not talking about siblings, right? We're gonna leave siblings will go to their new school, and it'll be a family choice at that point whether they wanna send the 6th graders or not. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And everybody else will go to their.
So only the sibling would be grandfathered in, and
It's
if.
a family choice.
And if the family decides to keep those children together, that incoming 6th grader would go to the district school.
Correct.
And I think this is a really challenging choice for you to make. I've flip-flopped back and forth. The structure of Stratford, your elementary schools, it is a long time. It is the longest amount of time you spend in the school. So I do understand that that change could be extremely impactful. And so, you know, I have shared my opinions with the board back and forth of whether or not it's important to have those waivers, and I can understand why this would be a request.
I just feel like if we're going to do this, there has to be a cutoff, like you said, you know, like then there's the next 5th grade, and we don't care about, you know, we care about one, just,
Yeah,
but I understand I understand the sentiment around the 6th grade, there needs to be a cutoff.
Right, but we explained that.
No, I understand, I'm just saying,
And they were definitely right, I was just not processing.
But the 5th graders would have 2 years.
In their new school.
In their new
Fourth
school,
graders would have
right.
3 years.
So you're only looking specifically at the incoming 6th graders to be able to finish their final year in the elementary school that most of them have probably been in since kindergarten.
Correct.
Mr.
And how many are there projected?
I had a number at one point.
No, there was a number.
There was a number at one point.
I don't have that in front of me.
Probably, if I was the guess,
It was like, I
I would
believe,
guess.
I remember
I mean, you have
correctly
your
from looking
enrollment
back.
chart right now? So you
It
can
was,
look-
right, but I
I
think
don't-
we were looking at, if I remember correctly from like some of the original scenarios given, it was about 7, rising 6th graders at Wilcoxon that would be being moved to Chapel, and it was about 8 Johnson House kids that would be being moved to Wilcoxon, and then there was a few kids from
The
Nichols.
whole 6th grade across the district.
Yeah, we're just total number of.
Yeah, of the whole 6th grade.
It's
That
less,
would-
it's less than 100.
Correct.
My only other question, I guess I will look into it. It probably won't have much transportation impact, so okay, I'll look into that.
But if we voted in, the impact's the impact, so we just have to deal with it.
Yeah. And again, I'm assuming same process. You guys would vote on this, and if you voted yes, then it would be my job to make sure that I put a deadline in, implemented it, let parents know when they needed to make their choice. Because we can't be just indefinite.
You know, again, it's an administrative decision on how it's handled. It's our decision to set the policy. Any other discussion? Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
No.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes, as amended.
Mr. Cormier?
Yes, as amended.
Ms. D'Angelo Powers?
Yes, as amended.
I'm gonna vote yes. I'll take your emotional reasoning and support it. So the motion passes 6-1. Emotional and rational, not just emotion. So that motion passes 6-1. So currently high school and sixth graders, and then your final. Yep.
I move to amend the current proposal to extend a grandfathering provision that students with IEPs and 504 plans are able to be considered for waivers to remain in their current schools on a case-by-case review to determine what is in the best interest of each child, ensuring their individual needs are prioritized.
I would love to speak as the Assistant Superintendent of Staff and Student Services on this specific topic. I am adamantly opposed to approving that for many reasons. But the number one reason is it is impossible to equitably do that. You are in a district where you have 1,364 students with exceptionalities. That would defeat the purpose of redistricting. In addition to that, an IEP is a legal document that a PPT team comes together to make sure that we are servicing those students appropriately, and that is a living document that moves with those students no matter where they go. We get new students every day from other districts. Our students move to other districts every day. That document is written to be able to be with them. There's also due process and legal obligations, and if families are not transitioning appropriately or there are needs, that's why you go back to PPT. So I am adamantly opposed to a waiver specifically for students with IEPs because there's no equitable way for you to choose who's a yes and who's a no with a district of 1,364 students with exceptionalities. So I do not think that is a great recommendation. I think we service our students in an amazing way, and we will continue to do that. If the student's in a program, they already are staying in the program.
How many of that number that you just ran up are already in programs?
We have well over 300 students in programs.
Okay, so then that's down to 1,000 students, and of that 1,000 students, how many were being redistricted and how many would be staying in their schools?
We're very transient, there's nowhere to know that, and I don't think there's an equitable waiver process for that to happen. Everybody's got a compelling story. If you get 1,000 waivers, there's no
But they're not
equitable way.
1,000, to Ms. D'Angelo Powers' point, we've knocked it down to 1,000, and not 1,000 students are being impacted by the redistricting. So if we can knock that number down even more, like, I have full confidence in the expertise and dedication of our service providers in all of our buildings. But it's important to recognize that success and progress of these students are not solely shaped by their teachers. A critical part of the growth comes from the nurturing and supportive environment created by their peers. I've seen firsthand at the high school level, question? No. I've seen firsthand at the high school level where students show incredible acceptance and encouragement, especially toward those that they've seen make progress and grow over the years. These long-standing connections foster a sense of belonging and shared accomplishments that cannot simply be replicated by relocating a student to a new setting. Preserving these relationships and environment is vital for the continued success of these students and with exceptionalities. They've made the growth not just because of their teachers, they made the growth and have been accepted because they've been with these peers for years. And it is something that has, I think, helped them to make their growth and has helped our students be so accepting of their peers with exceptionalities. I just want to give them the opportunity to have the best environment that they're most comfortable in.
And I definitely hear and accept everybody's views on it. I'm sharing a systematic view and a view from the standpoint of whether it is 20, 30, 40, or 100, there's not an equitable way to discern everyone's story. Every child with an exceptionality has a compelling story. And to have to say no, because we allowed a waiver process for students with exceptionalities, is not gonna be an equitable process. I don't advise it, but I hear what everyone is saying. I value every single one of our schools and how they service our kids. And again, ultimately the decision is yours, but I think you are setting your superintendent, as well as your assistant superintendent of staff and student services, who I'm sure will have to make those decisions, up to make some very, very challenging decisions that cannot be done in an equitable fashion.
I think there's such a close process with the PPT process to evaluating each student and making sure they are receiving what they need that.
That's to my point, though, Mrs. Bedell, right? I'm not saying that we should allow, not everyone is going to, with an IEP or 504 that's possibly impacted by redistricting, is going to request a waiver.
We don't know that, though. We don't know that.
Okay, but there are a few that may, and I want to just be able to give them the opportunity to apply for it if they so choose. But as it stands now, they wouldn't even have the option to apply for a waiver.
But they have a lot of options to go to PPT. They have a lot of options to talk about placement. They have a lot of options to file due process. They have a lot of options to work within the rights that are in IDA that protect them with their IEPs. And I think that is where those families need to go. I don't think that it should be made as a unilateral decision for redistricting. I have never seen IEPs written into anybody's redistricting ever, because it is a legal federal document that a team covers for students' needs. So that's just where I'm coming from.
So just to hang on to some of this, every year kids get new teachers. Every year you guys shift up the classroom makeup. So it's not the same group constantly. It's the school environment sometimes. Sometimes it's not the school environment, but it's people in general. We've known Ms. Borges for 3 years now, and as she's discussed the pupil services, she's been passionate, she's been creative, she's done amazing things for the district, for our kids with special needs and exceptionalities. She's probably one of the best in the state of Connecticut at what she does in that department. And I would have to take her recommendation. I can't see the disruption that it would cause if we tried to make this waiver throughout the district to the kids. It would just, it would create a disaster. And I'm going to have to accept for her experience and professionalism and her opinion and her knowledge as to guide me with this decision, and I can't support doing that. And I think it would be even disruptive to those kids.
One of my supervisors brought up another point to this, and again, I want to support every child. It is not anything to do with that. But with an opportunity to provide a waiver like that, I'm also concerned with the number of new referrals you will get as a district. Because if parents find out that if you have an IEP, you have an opportunity to get a waiver, you may get increased referrals. And we already have a process in place where we are seeing a significant increase of referrals to special education. And I just I want to respect the integrity of students with exceptionalities and our IEP process and the IDEA process and the laws and regulations that are in place, and I want to let them do their job. And you have a right to vote how your heart says, and I will implement whatever it is you decide, but I want to respect the integrity of those laws, and I would advocate that way no matter whether I was the acting superintendent or back in my other role.
Any other discussion?
I just feel that, again, it was just to give an option to apply for some, whether they choose to or not. Like hearing tonight, Mrs. Luzabello, you're talking about a medically complex child who can walk to school with her, or now will have to have a nurse on a van and a van and all of that added, which is an expense, but she's willing to, save that expense from the district by, so I think to that example, there are a few exceptions that should have the opportunity to waive or ask for a waiver based on that.
I think that if we go back to the original suggestion of scenario one, IEPs, things like that were looked at. The SLAM did say that they looked at those, and transportation costs were reduced in that scenario. So I don't think that's necessary. I get it. People want to save money, but I don't think that's necessarily a valid argument.
I don't think it accounted for the specialized transportation for those students.
Well, I mean, we have special transportation that can accommodate, parents' needs and students' needs. That's what we do. And if that was the only case I thought we'd get, no problem, but it's not. So that's what I'm worried about. And then the decision-making, you will vote on this, but you're not the ones who are gonna make those waiver decisions. You're not the ones that are gonna have to look at a family and say no, when they believe their story is just as important as the one you just said yes to. It just becomes extremely difficult. I would rather meet their needs through the IEP process.
The due process costs would probably shoot through the roof with those parents.
I'm not worried about costs. I'm worried about making sure that your administration can make equitable, ethical decisions. And when there's just too many variables that can impact that.
Any other discussion? On the amended motion, Ms. Carol Fabian?
As amended, yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
No.
Ms. Bedell?
No.
Mr. Kennedy?
No.
Mr. Parmier?
As amended, yes.
Ms. D'Angelo Powers?
As amended, yes.
Chair votes no, motion fails 4-4. Is there any other discussion
Yes.
about Ms. Bedell?
What about the rest of the general waiver process? Students that just want a waiver for childcare issues or, whatever it might be. Are we still going to review those waivers? Are we going to?
Under scenario one, there are no more waivers.
Right, that's what I mean. We're pausing all those waivers for now, and those will be out of, those students will return to their schools as well.
That's part of scenario one.
Any other discussion? Okay, so we'll move on to meeting dates, 2025. So I've reviewed the Board of Ed schedule. Reese had May 27th, goes to Memorial Day. Rosh Hashanah, is that a day off?
Yes.
Okay. That's right. And that would be a month, would we, and when does the Jewish holiday goes beyond the 22nd, or would we just? I'm sorry. So back on page 53. And Teresa, thank you for putting numbers on the pages of our agenda, that's awesome.
Trying to make it easier.
On page 53. Yep.
So 53, September 22, 2025, Rosh Hashanah, the suggestion is move it to the 29th. Could we move it to a Tuesday, or we better off?
Is that the following Monday?
The 22nd is a Monday, which is Rosh Hashanah. Yeah, or we can move it to the Tuesday, or the 20th. I mean, I'd be okay with moving it to the 29th.
I think Rosh Hashanah, it starts at sundown on the 22nd and goes through the 23rd, so I think that moving to probably be better on.
Okay.
That's a Monday.
Does that make a special meeting or is that?
No, because
No.
it'll be approved here,
Yeah.
not here. So then, all right, oh, no, we're here, okay. So look for a motion to accept the Board of Ed meeting schedule for 2025.
So move with September 29th is.
September 29th is a meeting date. And Mr. O'Brien, second by Mr. Kennedy. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Mr. Dow, do you want to speak to the finance committee?
Yeah, actually, I'd like to make a few changes to that. I think that for the month of January, we should move the meeting to before the board meeting, because we'll have a budget presentation shortly thereafter. So I think that, it would be more advantageous to do that.
January
So
27th.
January 27th. And then the April 28th, or the April 9th meeting, we should move to before the board meeting, because spring break is the following week, we do the 16th, and we would like to hope that the town council would hear, the school budget proposal at that point. Those meetings are usually held at that point. So it would be April 28th instead.
And then, do we want to cancel the December 10th meeting because the board won't be in place at that time? That'll be the new board.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That would be the organizational meeting.
So then we would cancel it. So I left the Board of Ed meeting there only because it gives them the opportunity to have that meeting if they want.
No,
That December 10th meeting would be the organizational meeting.
So that meeting would be canceled. So the motion would be to change the 8th to the 27th of January, the 9th of April to the 28th, and to eliminate the December 10th meeting.
Correct.
So motion by Mr. Dow.
Question.
Yeah, let's get a second.
Okay. Second.
Second by Ms. Garabedian.
Question. To that point, then, could we possibly make the December 10th into like the December 22nd to line up with their board meeting? You know what I mean? Instead of canceling it completely for December, just put it before their board meeting like you were doing with some of the other finance meetings?
Okay.
So change that to December 22nd?
You'll accept that?
Sure.
Okay. So that would be not canceled, but December 22nd. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passed unanimously. Planning, January 2nd, are we back in school? I forgot how we.
It's the first day.
Okay, so we'll keep that, and so we'll keep January 2nd, but we'll cancel the December 4th meeting. And yeah, so I make a motion to approve as drawn and to eliminate the December 4th, 2025 meeting. Motion, second by Mr. Dow, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passed unanimously.
I just have a question on the dates, not about the dates, but, the quorum is listed as 8. I think there won't be people on the committee, so the quorum would be 5. Just so we note it correctly to the clerk.
Quorum is 5.
Correct. It should be 5.
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Carol Fabian, Mr. Kennedy, curriculum. You guys know the dates? We do want to eliminate December 9th?
I would just, question on the December 9th.
Motion to accept the meetings, eliminating December 9th. By Mr. Kennedy, second by Ms. Carol Fabian. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. No meetings for the naming committee.
Just a note, hold on, just a note on the education, or the curriculum committee. Tori Flork's name is spelled wrong.
So it's Jessica Scandaros.
Just Gander, yeah, just Gander right too, so.
Technically, I don't know for the vice chair.
Okay. Thought we did, but maybe not. Policy review, Mr. O'Brien.
That works. I think that 4 o'clock works well for everybody.
Okay. So we'll keep the schedule as given, and we will remove the December 17th meeting. Motion by Mr. O'Brien, I'll second it. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Athletic Review Committee?
To be determined, but I would like to add, for the January, meeting,
So this is dates to be determined.
The 16th.
I would like to add.
Okay. And then the others will be determined? Okay.
And then the second part of that would be like the committee roster. I know, Mr. Kennedy and I, after my suggestion, had added, 2 parents, 1 representative from each of the high school's booster clubs as committee members.
Can you forward those names to Teresa and Sue? So the motion would be to add January 16th as a regular scheduled meeting and to add the 2 names to the meeting schedule.
No, like the 4 of 6, right?
496. Okay. Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Ms. Carol Fabian. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Stratford Board of Ed, we'll just leave that as is, and that's the bylaws. And the Personnel Committee will leave as is as well. Dropping back. So as per the recommendation of our attorney, I will appoint, with board approval, the entire board as the Superintendent Search Committee. I will create some subcommittees within that. The first step would be to hire a company to help us with the search, but he had suggested we name the entire board as the Superintendent Search Committee.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Carol Fabian, seconded by Ms. Bedell. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Residency, we're gonna leave on the table unless somebody feels the urge to pull it off. New appointments, resignations, I think we're good there. So we'll jump into committee reports. Mr. Kennedy, Ms. Carol Fabian.
We just meet December 10th is the next one, and your presentation will be by staff.
Finance Committee, Ms. Bedell.
We met this evening before the board meeting, talked a lot about various items that have come up over the past couple of months, athletic budgets, lunch budgets, things to look forward to in the coming budget season, and we're just preparing for budget season.
School planning, we had our meeting on November 7th to discuss the final pieces of the redistricting. I want to thank everybody who joined in. I might actually, our next task will be capital improvement. I might ask some of you to come back and just give us some guidance, what's there, what's not, just for conversational purposes. But we'll update you on that. For the liaison, did not meet. Policy review, Mr. O'Brien.
Yes, as we saw earlier on November 20th, we accomplished much thanks to the work done before the meeting. And everyone is geared up to continue working hard in the next few months. And eventually we to look at every policy.
Thank you. Any questions? Athletic review. Bylaw committee, we have close to what is the final draft of our bylaws. And we're in the final, we're gonna take one more look at it, I think, and then if once we make those final adjustments, we'll send it to the board for review. We'll send a copy of an original and a red line copy so you can see all the changes we've made. We're almost there. And Ms. D'Angelo Powers, did you have anything you wanted to add? We've had a lot of good input on it, and I think it's just mostly just cleaning up a lot of the clutter within it. Naming committee did not meet. Personnel committee, Mr. Dell.
We met prior to this meeting. We only meet as necessary for appointments.
Kate, Ms. Carol Fabian.
Myself, Mr. Cormier, and Ms. D'Angelo Powers attended the CAPE convention up in Mystic 2 weeks ago, where there were several different presentations, a phenomenal guest speaker, and Ms. D'Angelo Powers and I were able to on Saturday, sit in on and support Ms. Borges as she presented her presentation for her portion of CAPE's many workshops that they offer to help grow Board of Education members to learning more about the process and educational law and opportunities for our students.
I know you guys are still here, it's up to your boss, but, you know, once you give your report, unless you want to stay and pay attention, but we'd love to have you stay, but, you know. CES, Mr. Kennedy? Building needs, no update, general good of the order round here. Mr. O'Brien.
Well, with Thanksgiving coming up, I have to thank Bunnell and Stratford High for their incredible Veterans Day events and culinary departments preparing great lunches, dinners. Then Franklin School, Johnson Academy, and who am I forgetting? One other did great. Oh, Johnson Academy, Franklin, and I can't remember who the third one was. They all had great assemblies and lunches. And no, Whitney had their own private one, recognizing veterans within the school. Chapel put out a nice flag display. And I'm sorry I'm forgetting that one. And then I have to thank too the Bunnell and Stratford football teams who always come to the museum anytime you need heavy work done. And so, thank you and happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
And we did, who was there? Mr. Angelo Powers, myself, Mr. O'Brien, that was it. We went to Bunnell, and Mr. Duff, and the baby.
With the baby.
And the baby.
Baby in tow.
Sean was there too.
We were treated to an amazing lunch from the Bunnell Culinary Institute, and they made about 7 or 8 different items, and didn't want to let anyone down, so I tried them all. They were all amazing. The desserts were great. It was really appreciated, as I'm sure the veterans' lunches were. So I want to thank you, and again, football game is Thursday. What time?
10 a.m.
10 a.m. So for those who can make it, go see Stratford Tradition.
Do you want me to say that?
Heather?
Just so everyone is prepared, there may be a change due to weather to Wednesday night. Currently, the game is Thursday at 10 a.m., but they are watching the weather and actively working with that, and we will notify people immediately if it needs to move.
Just stay tuned.
Immediately once we know.
Immediately as soon as we get
All right, anything else?
And since culinary is mentioned, I have to throw out there that it is so popular, there's a huge waiting list at both schools, right? Jack and Katie?
Yes.
So we have to see if there's something we can do to expand those programs.
Thank you.
And lastly, I just want to thank everybody for all their input throughout this last year. We've gotten through a lot. We've ruffled some feathers, but I think we've done a lot of good along the way, and hopefully we continue. But your input is important. We do listen. We don't always agree, but we do listen, and the opinions and comments we hear factor into our thought process. So without those, and without the support of the staff and their interactions with us during it, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So thank you all, and happy Thanksgiving.
And just congratulations to the Lady Bulldogs on their Powder Puff win.
Is that it?
See you on Thursday.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?